The time is 4 o'clock. And I will open up this meeting of the, sure I have the right one, the Thompson Springs Special Service Fire District Administrative Control Board. The first thing we have on our agenda is citizens to be heard. I want to remind all people who are on the Zoom that this is a time for citizens to be heard concerning the Thompson Springs Fire District, not the regular commission meeting. So, Mallory, is there anyone present who wishes to speak on the Thompson Spring Fire District?
I've received a comment about the main meeting, but if there is anybody on for Thompson, oh, did I hear someone? I'm losing my mind. Okay, shoot me a message, raise your hand, or turn on your camera or unmute if you're here for public comment with Thompson. But at this time, Mary, I don't believe we have anyone.
Okay, thank you very much. We are to approval of minutes for July 20th, 2021. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I a motion by Gabriel Wojtek? Do I have a second? Seconded by Evan Clapper. Discussion. Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes? Raise your hand or say aye or both. Passes unanimously. We are to ratification of bills. Do I have a motion to ratify the bills?
Chair, if I may?
Yes.
I would move to approve Grand County bills for the Thompson Springs Fire District for August 17th, 2021. Total bills in the amount of $901.39. Total payroll in the amount of 500. Let's see. Total bills is listed twice on this. I'm not sure which one is bills and payroll. But total bills in the amount of $901.39. Total bills in the amount of $533.34. And total bills and payroll in the amount of $1,434.73. And I just quoted that as it's written. But it seems like one of those bills should be payroll.
Gwen, which one of those should be payroll?
Hang on a second, let me look at it.
I guess we usually always put the payroll second, so maybe we can, I'm not sure if it's safe to assume.
Yeah, payroll is usually on the bottom.
Okay.
Okay, so payroll is the amount of $533.34 for the total that I quoted previously.
Okay. Thank you, Gabriel. Motion by Gabriel. Do I have a second? Seconded by Jacques. Discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We are to the Fire District Chief's report. He is not here. Is he, Mallory? Last I looked, he wasn't. So I will read his report into the minutes or into the recording. Recent incidents on 7/22 to the 83, Mark Markham on fire line medic assignment in Tamarack Fire, California, Nevada. And on 7/10, the bushfire on 170 mile marker 209. Equipment, all apparatuses are functioning. Training on 8/5, he had a fire hose testing. Others, Thompson's familiarization meeting with the new planning and zoning directors and other related departments. That is the conclusion of his report. So we do not have any new, getting back to this. So we do not have any new business, old business, future consideration. There's not a public hearing. There's not a closed session. We have reached the end of our agenda. So if I do not have any objections, we will close this meeting of the Thompson Spring Fire Department. Seeing none, this meeting is closed. We are now moving to our regular county commission meeting. And I forgot to do this during the Thompson Springs, so Quinn, it would be the same people who are present for our regular commission meeting. Present are Jacques Hadler, Sarah Stock, Evan Clapper, Gabriel Wojtek, Tricia Dean, myself, Mary McGann, commissioners. Kevin Walker will be joining us in 30 minutes or so. Also present are Mallory Nassau, Associate County Commission Administrator, Chris Baird, Commission Administrator, Quinn Hall, County Clerk. I do not see our county attorney on this meeting as of yet. Is she present, Mallory? No. Okay. So we are to the point of citizens to be heard. Before we have citizens to be heard, I want to make a short statement that I taught for over 30 years, and in those 30 years, the majority of the students that I taught were healthy, robust, and would be so capable of handling an infection of the Delta variant. But almost yearly, I had students that were not that healthy, who were either dealing with dealing with their heart condition. I'm hearing some feedback. Who are dealing with kidney, liver, intestinal issues, who have serious asthma. They are the minority in our school system, I admit, and I agree. But they are a member of those children and those student body, and they are vulnerable. And if I was not in the shoes of one of those parents that has a vulnerable child, I would put my feet there and ask myself, do I want my children, those vulnerable children, exposed to a virus that could land them in the ICU or worse? That being said, I will open this to public comment. Mallory will have a timer. We're limiting the public comment to 2 minutes. So at this time, Mallory, would you start calling on people who are here for public comment? Thank you.
Yes, I've received a few messages, and so we have a few folks in line. If you're on for public comment and you're able to, and you want to shoot me a chat or raise your hand, I'll add you to the list. But do you all see the timer?
I can see it, Mallory.
What's that?
Yeah, I can
Make
see it.
sure you state your name, please.
Okay, first up we have Emily Campbell.
Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Campbell. I sent a letter ahead over the weekend, so I'm going to keep my comments brief. I'm just here to say that I am in favor of the mask mandate. I know that this is a very confusing and overwhelming time. And unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of disinformation circulating, and I know that that's leading to frustration on all sides of this issue. But I think that this is the right decision. It's the right decision to slow the spread, to protect public health, and to protect the most vulnerable members of our community until all members of our community can be vaccinated. And I hope that we will get through this awful experience. I believe that we will get through this, and I hope that we will begin to heal as a community soon. But the one thing that we all can do is step up, be willing to be a little bit inconvenienced for the better of all. So finally, I just want to say thank you to each of you, to our school board, to our school district staff, teachers, public health professionals, and healthcare professionals for making difficult decisions on behalf of the community. You all have a very difficult job, and I appreciate you. And I hope that everyone listens and everyone tuning in takes this as an opportunity to get vaccinated, because if we all get vaccinated, we will get through this pandemic faster and start to move on. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Emily.
Okay, next on the list, Mary, we have Michael Scarda.
Yeah, my name is Michael Scarda. I'm with Namaste Rock, and we are over a year ago. We submitted an application for a small lot residential rezone, and usually these rezones go through in a few months. 2 or 3 months is what it takes. Anyway, this has been over a year, and we're still struggling to be heard by the county council. The county commission. Anyway, if there's a way that we can get heard, that would be really fantastic. We have met every requirement without delay, and the ball has not been in our court, and we would love to be heard. If there's a way that our application can be sped up, that would be really fantastic for everyone. I know that Grand County really needs housing, and it's impossible to get a rezone for this new housing. It's been over a year, and I don't see any progress being made on it.
Thank you, Michael. Next.
Okay, Mary, next we have Logan on.
Yep. Oh. I'm just concerned about the mask mandate, and I'm not against masks. I'm not against the vaccine, but I am against a government body telling me and my family how we have to go about our lives and our day. I'm all for giving us the information as accurate information as possible and letting us make the choice and make the decision to wear a mask. For just as many studies you can find that say masks help, masks work, you can find just as many that say they don't work or they're not helping, especially not these cloth masks that the kids are wearing. I know my kids, I have 2 kids at HMK, and they come home after one day with a mask, and it's dirty and black inside the mask. And it doesn't matter if you clean it every day, they're getting really dirty. They're collecting a lot of germs in those masks. And it's, like I said, I don't have a problem with them wearing masks, but I do having it mandated. So yeah, that's my 2 cents, I guess. And I speak for several people, friends that I know that aren't here, but that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Logan.
Okay, next on the list, we have Gavin.
Hi, this is. Hello, this is actually Crystal Harrison. I'm signed in under. Hopefully you can, hopefully you guys can hear me. So I didn't realize I only had 2 minutes, so I'm going to make this real fast. I left all the comments on the district page as to why I am against the mask mandates. I do have a student with the asthma that Mary McGann was speaking of, and that is exactly why I don't want him to be mandated or any other students to be mandated. In fact, he has natural immunity from the virus, and those students have a voice too. But last night, the superintendent was unable to provide the numbers in which were used to request the mandate. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share that. There has been 4,104 total cases in Moab, 1 hospitalized currently, 30 total hospitalized since COVID started, 4 deaths, all 4 in the elderly. In 2019, there was a total of 5,336 people. Again, the total cases is 4,104. And with that being said, I think we should be celebrating herd immunity by letting the children breathe freely. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal.
Okay, next on the list, Lily, we have Mike and Heather.
Oh. Are we there? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. Okay. I am Heather Taylor, and I have 2 kids in HMK. I have a 1st grader and a 4th grader, and they're really excited to head back to school. And unfortunately, we kind of feel struck between the eyes with this decision. We are 100% against this mask mandate. We definitely don't like the last minute decisions that force us in a position where we feel like we have to make hard choices that aren't necessary. I totally believe in everyone's right to make a choice for themselves and for their families. I feel like masks are fine. If you choose to wear them, that's fine. We do not feel our kids need to be put in the position where they don't have a choice. I have made calls to our legislators to let them know as well that we are opposed to this. The governor's office said they also didn't understand how the health department did that. And I guess with that, I'd like to know, I'm trying to understand how the health department can mandate our county when this health department is over 4 additional counties that don't have the same mandate. And I would love that question answered as to why. Another thing I'd like to wonder is where the data is. If you guys could maybe even email that out to show us the data you're going off, that way we maybe could see where you're coming from, because otherwise we just flat don't understand. And we appreciate all you're doing and your time, and we love our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. The health department and the hospital will be presenting some information later on in the meeting. It is item N on the agenda, but we may move it up. Next.
Okay, I'll just say quickly, we have some new people jumping on. So if you are on for comment, please send me a chat, give a thumbs up emoji, or in a moment we'll call for people to turn on their cameras. But next on the list, we have Nick.
Hi, I'm Nicole Taylor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, just checking. I've already emailed a lot of people about my feelings on it, so the council members have, you kind of already know, but I would just like to say that I have faith in HMK to be able to keep kids healthy without masks. They do an exceptional job. Before COVID, they kept kids healthy. They have always been fantastic. They have some good things in place. And this isn't saying no masks. There are some people who need them, but there are other people who don't. And so many kids have issues with sensory processing disorders, speech problems, all sorts of things. I mean, it's off the chart, the numbers of kids who struggle with this. And it's not fair to them to shoulder the burdens that they have to shoulder at school and then ask them to deal with these masks on top of it when they make them sick. My kids get sick with them if they have them for more than an hour. It's just not fair to the kids. And I believe that the school can keep these kids safe and that we should at least give them the chance. And I guess that's all.
Thank you.
Okay, next, Mary, we have Megan.
Hi, my name is Megan Schaefer. I have a daughter who is entering 3rd grade at HMK potentially. I think from a parental standpoint, my frustration is with the fact that we get this information at 4:30 on social media. It's not anything that the parents were consulted about or that we got questionnaires on, like we get plenty of other questionnaires on. It seems like it was a really reckless decision that was just kind of made quickly. 3 days before school is really, it's a hard thing to throw in our faces and explain to our kids that they've been playing with these kids all summer long. They've been playing soccer, they've been swimming in the pools, they've been doing everything together, going to daycare, and now all of a sudden they have to wear a mask, but maybe their older sibling doesn't have to wear one to the high school. I think that this is something that doesn't feel well planned out. It feels like a last minute political display to me, honestly. What I would like to know is how many kids in Grand County currently have a COVID diagnosis. I want to know how many in Utah have a current diagnosis. Where are the facts to support this decision that was made, and why weren't the parents consulted is really what I want to know. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Megan. Next.
Mary, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen because I can't see the video, and I want to make sure that we can catch anybody else. If you are on, all right, it looks like Gavin has a question. I just got a chat. I'm not sure if that's something that's appropriate to ask right now.
So is it the one that says Gavin wants, I would like to comment as well? Is it that one?
Yes, Gavin.
Gavin,
commented
would
already,
you like
but
to comment as well as your wife, Crystal?
Hi, I'm trying to just ask a question if I'm allowed, if I have time left.
Normally we don't answer questions. I think most of your questions will be answered when we have the health district, the hospital.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that back to school night was maskless tonight and we don't have to worry about Delta until Thursday. Thank you.
That's true. Yes, that's true.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I would ask anybody that's on to press *6 to unmute if you're on your phone, or turn on your camera in case you aren't able to send a chat or raise your hand with the emoji. Okay, sorry, Mary, I just want to double check and make sure we aren't leaving anybody out. We do have a question from Megan Schaefer. I don't know if you want to allow her to at least pose it to me. Oh, I think you're on
Mary,
mute.
you're muted.
so-
Mary, you're
Mary, I
still
think you're
muted.
still on mute.
This is Megan. Am I supposed to talk?
Mary, you're muted.
It seems like Mary's having technical difficulties, but Megan, I believe you're.
Okay, it finally unmuted. It got stuck. I'm very sorry. The question was, how many commissioners have children in HMK or in school? I know we have one commissioner that has children of school age, and I know we have commissioners that have preschoolers and commissioners that have high schoolers.
And I work for the school district. I'm an educator within the school district, and Mary was an educator in the school district.
Is there any other citizens to be heard?
Mary, I am not seeing any at this time. Let me do a final scan of the second window and make sure. And no, it looks like that is everyone at this time, Mary.
Okay. Thank you. And I want to thank the citizens of Moab who commented tonight with such civility. I really appreciate that it was not what's happening in other communities. So thank you, everyone who has commented. We are to approval of minutes for August 3rd, 2021.
I move to approve the minutes for August 3rd, 2021.
A motion by Sarah. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jacques. Discussion. I'm not seeing Jacques on my screen for some reason. I wonder how we can get him up to the screen.
I assure you I'm here, Mary.
Oh, I know. It's just hard to see, raise your hand and such. That's the only reason. For some reason, you're on a different page rather than the first page. So I don't know how to move you up to where you're with the rest of us. So anyway, all in favor, any discussion on the minutes? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. We are to ratification of payment of bills.
Chair, if I may.
Okay, Gabriel, thank you.
I would make a motion to ratify Grand County bills for August 17th, 2021. Total bills in the amount of $790,895.69. Total payroll in the amount of $258,344.68. Total bills and payroll in the amount of $1,049,240.37.
Motion by Gabriel Wojtek. Do I have a second? Seconded by Evan Clapper. Discussion? All in favor of approving bills as read? Thank you. Passes unanimously. We are to commission disclosures. Do we have any commissioners that need to disclose anything on this agenda?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
in regards to item L, the special events pre-authorization list, I'm involved with the Utah High School Cycling League and am a coach for our local high school team.
Thank you, Evan. Any other disclosures on an item that's on the agenda this evening? Okay, we are to general commission reports and future considerations. Tonight, I'm going to do it a little differently. Normally, I am the last to say anything, but I want to, before we start, recognize two of our employees who have put forth so much effort over the last few weeks since we've had these monsoon rains, and they've had to deal with so much flooding. And they have spent much time and much effort, and their staff as well. So if you have an opportunity to see them or talk to them, please let them know how much we appreciate them. Bill Holtz and Bill Jackson have worked diligently, not only to clean up what has happened during the last flood. They're doing out there working right now to figure out ways to hopefully mitigate and keep the predicted storm from doing further damage. I feel very fortunate that we have staff members that go above and beyond and don't ask for anything and do not expect to be acknowledged. But I think as leaders, it's important for us to let them know how important they are to us and what they've done for us. They have, if people out there are cleaning up and they need some help with removal or something, go to Grand County, Utah website, and you will be directed to be able to get some of the debris that you need picked up. Push it to the side of your property and it will be picked up. Call 435-259-5308. I will put that in the chat. And for the Grand County Road Department. And they will organize a pickup for you between 7 and 5:30 p.m. And to the citizens out there that have been so, devastated by this unprecedented flooding and the situations we're dealing with in our county, from fires to floods, my heart goes out to you. It's hard to have your property hurt. So thank you very much. Thank you, Bill, our two great Bills on our staff, Bill Holtz and Bill Jackson, for all of your work. I really, really appreciate it. And I know the other commissioners do as well. Is there any other commissioner that would like to make a comment? Okay. I would also, as we saw in the paper, we saw that Elaine Gisler, the director of the Travel Council, is moving to work as the Travel Council director in San Juan County. Congratulations to San Juan County. She is dynamic and she works very, very hard. Elaine was hired in July of 2015, the same year that the Utah legislators made it illegal for UTVs to drive on county and city roads. So she jumped into a situation where she was faced with uproar from the community about the impact of tourism that are using the UTVs and ATVs. So she came into this job at a very challenging time, 3 years after the Mighty Five campaign. And it was after the Mighty Five campaign that Grand County, instead of celebrating our tourism, started to be concerned. We became very worried because of the impacts, the negative impacts, and how it was affecting our county. And all of a sudden, instead of people celebrating the Travel Council like it was under Marion DeLay, Elaine was faced with people pretty frustrated and pretty upset with the state and the way they divided up the TRT tax. They were wondering and did not understand that she had to spend a certain amount on promotion. And she was put in a tough situation where she went to many meetings, the League of Women Voters and other meetings to explain and try to get the public to understand what she was charged with doing. She did it eloquently and professionally. And then she was faced in 2016 with the 100-year anniversary of the national parks, which once again brought in a huge amount of tourists. And oftentimes she became the focus of the angst that the community was feeling. And It was difficult, but she maintained her professionalism. She was always approachable. She did an excellent job in that manner. When she moved, she started recognizing the needs of the community, and she moved to do it like a local. And then when the county commission asked for us to do, have all advertising, have respect and recreate responsibly, she jumped into that with both feet and did her best. And I just feel it's important for us as a commission and as a county to recognize her 6 years of employment and wish her well in her next endeavor. So thank you very much, Elaine. And thank you for navigating these difficult times in Grand County. You did it with elegance. Thank you. Does anyone else have anything to comment? Thank you, Elaine. As far as my report, I was gone for a week. It was, I worked with Representative John Curtis on immigration with the Multicultural Center, and have been working with the people in Denver, talking to the people in Denver about our problems with overcrowding in Arches National Park. So that's my report. Trish.
Can you hear me, Mary?
Yes, I can.
Okay, just
Very
let me
well.
know if I start breaking up. I don't have a lot. I had a planning commission meeting on the 26th that I was unable to make due to family illness. On the 28th, I was able to go to the Thompson Springs Water District, where it's really great. We have a new chair and he's super proactive, and we're looking at applying for some grants for infrastructure development within that water system, and also awaiting the water study so that we can kind of move forward. We've been, as the commission knows, in a stasis of just waiting out what we can do out there as far as development, but I'm really hopeful with the new chair in place. And then yesterday we had a Thompson Springs Special Service District meeting to vote on prospective board members to go ahead and round out the rest of our board, which we'll make those recommendations tonight. So that's it, Mary.
Sarah?
Thanks. Let's see, I've been working on some water monitoring related projects with Mark's, trying to outline a water monitoring plan with Mark Stilson and Arnie, and I'll be coming to the commission at some point requesting for funding for this fiscal year for some of the highest priority projects, but I will update you as that develops. And I had a meeting with Patty Trapp out at Arches National Park and about the pilot program for timed entry into the park, which they will be trying out like a pilot program in the spring of 2022. And I attended a weed board meeting where we discussed the development of a goat head bounty program. So keep your eyes tuned for opportunities to win prizes from local bike shops for the amount of goat heads that you bring to the weed board.
Hey, Sarah, I don't know if you know this about me, but I am a weeder extraordinaire.
You're gonna win.
So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say I might win this one.
Yeah. So yeah, future flyers and about that. That's all.
Thank you, Sarah. Evan?
I also had the opportunity to answer questions and have questions fielded by the Park Service regarding a timed entry program. So that was nice to kind of have that dialogue with our partners here in the community. The cemetery board this month was postponed. There's a small agenda and that'll be addressed at next month's meeting. I did have the opportunity to meet with John Curtis as well as a more informal setting, but we kind of just kind of touched base briefly about some things on his radar that we might be interested in, and some brief updates on kind of like our intentions on drafting a land bill, and just kind of keeping some excitement behind that. He had a lot of questions about our housing struggles as well, and offered support for creative solutions there. My biggest meeting was the EMS Special Service District. So just some updates about the building there. There was a change in the staffing from the contractors. The superintendent of the project was let go by Hogan. And so it's possibly slowing the completion there. There's also some kind of added costs as we got closer. But if you remember me reporting last time that we were under budget and they were adding some perks in that had originally been budgeted out. Now some of those perks are kind of coming back out, back to the more simplified version. But the director over there is doing our EMS director is doing a good job of holding their feet to the fire. It's taken a lot of its time, but still estimated to be in before the end of the year. And he's assured the board that it will be within budget. So that's nice to hear. There was some discussion about the sales tax split with the healthcare special service district that the EMS shares that with, that will be coming to our September 7th meeting. So it sounds like they have agreed ahead of time so that they come with a united front. So it's not up to us to kind of make those calls. So that was refreshing for me to hear. And then there was, we did a big workshop, just kind of planning for the next year in regards to staffing, retention, medical dispatching, and also some issues around dispatch. And so the medical dispatching that I was just mentioning. And so I think that we will be hearing more from them and some other agencies around that. And I may reach out to some commissioners outside of this. So if I run into you at the grocery store, feel free to poke me and ask me what that's about. And I'll try to front load some of these things before they come to the commission in the next couple months. And I believe that that's all I have.
Thank you, Evan. Gabriel.
First off, I have to admit that I'm a politely chronic trespasser on my neighbor's property in the name of picking goat heads. But as a farmer who's picked many weeds, there's nothing more satisfying than getting one of those whoppers where you get it right in the middle and it's like a big, how big is that mat, that rug? Anyway, that sounds like fun. I will be competing. I had a meeting with the Grand County Economic Diversification Advisory Council on the 4th of August, right after our last meeting. Current conversation, which we're going to have a workshop, looks like next week to sort of try to unravel, is so looking for ways to spend the economic development TRT dollars that were freed up thanks to Chris Barrett's hard work and others. Methods that we can use the money for this year that have kind of low administrative overhead, as we've yet to sort of fully sort of cement that department and establish the programs needed to disperse those funds. So that's a hot topic at the moment. I also met with August Granith to discuss how that advisory council can be more active, especially in providing recommendations during this process of the update to the general plan and sort of looking at reforming the land use code in the name of the economic development that we'd like to see. And yeah, I guess I'm likely chairing that council now newly with Elaine's departure. I had a few meetings with the Southeastern Utah Association of Local Governments. There was a RFP selection committee for their new facility in Price, which is kind of exciting for the region. And that was a kind of an interesting process. First time I've been involved in sort of one of those RFP selections. So that was cool. Canyonlands Healthcare Special Service District, met with them on August 12th. They did have one staff person come up COVID positive, but as they have throughout the last year plus, they effectively managed the situation and protected the residents there, and working with our 4 incoming commissioners, so they've been around now for 8 months, in terms of, and meeting with Joette Langanese and sort of getting a little bit more background about the care center outside of our general meeting here, important background about the importance of that facility to our community. And like looks like most of the other commissioners, I met with Patty Trapp and Marco De Leon of the National Park Service in Denver, Patty Trapp locally, of course, to connect about arches, volume management, upcoming public input processes surrounding the possibility of timed entry. I think that's all I have for now. Thanks.
Thank you. Jacques.
I also am guilty of enjoying picking every goat head that I see along the bike paths and sidewalks, and meticulously cleaning my property of them all. So I'm looking forward to that as well. And thanks for working on that, Sarah. I also met with Patty Trapp and the Regional Outreach Director from the National Park Service to discuss a potential timed entry system to arches, and I appreciate them giving us locals a voice to that. I also had a couple of meetings, or was involved with a couple of meetings with Congressman Curtis when he was in town, including local immigration as well as public lands. I also had separate meetings with the Trail Mix Non-Motorized Trails Committee, as well as the Grand County Motorized Trails Committee. And the main topic of each of those was the use of TRT money in the Trail Ambassador Program and how to effectively use that money for outreach and mitigating the effects of trail usage and in educating the public. So similar themes in both those meetings. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Jacques. I don't think Kevin has joined us. He was hoping to be here by now. I will look through the people. I don't see him. So when he does
Mary,
arrive.
Could I double dip for a second there?
Oh, you bet, Evan.
I had a meeting with the Boundary Commission scheduled, and there was some confusion about the makeup. So we actually didn't have a quorum, so the meeting didn't occur. But with that, there are 3 open spots on the Boundary Commission, and they would be for residents. So we're actively recruiting for those, and there might be some invites going out. But if anyone knows of anyone who might be interested, it's a fairly, as long as things are going smooth and there's no contestments, it's a fairly light duty commission, and would love some assistance from local residents in making democracy work.
Thank you, Evan. Anyone else want to double dip? Okay. Are there any elected officials out there that have something they would like to share? Okay, seeing none, we will move to Commission Administrator reports. So we will hear from Chris Baird and Mallory Nassau. Chris?
Thank you, Mary. I'll just keep it quick. Just wanted to also echo my appreciation to Bill Holst and Bill Jackson for all the work they've been doing since the flooding's begun. There's a lot of bureaucracy involved in being able to get into the floodplain, the floodway, and so we've been working with the state on getting some emergency authorization to do work in the floodway. We also been working with SITLA to do fairly large ditch and berm to help protect the Beeman subdivision. In the long term, we're working with NRCS, and they will hopefully be able to provide us with some long-term solutions and potentially some resources as well. And as you recall, we also engaged our contract engineer to help us apply for a FEMA BRIC program funding. And that funding program is specific to helping communities be resilient in the face of climate change induced hazards, which I think we're witnessing right now with Pat Creek. And so we're working on it as fast as we can, trying to, the crews are out there right now and yesterday as well, trying to get ready for the storm that's coming tomorrow and Thursday. So working hard on that, both in the short term and the long term. Also just wanted to give a shout out to our airport director, Andy Solzig, who received his accredited airport executive certification from the American Association of Airport Executives. Fewer than 10% of airport executives across the nation have that certification, and I know it was a lot of work for him to get it. So I just want to say congratulations to Andy Solzig, our airport director, for that. And the budgeting process is starting up in September. So for September and October, the Budget Advisory Board will meet with elected offices and department heads to review the budget requests and prepare a tentative budget. In the first week or the first meeting in November, the County Commission will then adopt a tentative budget. And at that point, the budgeting process switches over to the County Commission. And then we start working with, we'll have at least a couple of budget sessions with the County Commission and try to get the budget in as near a final state as we can for our first meeting in December, where we'll have our public hearing, and then the second meeting in December we'll have scheduled for action for the 2022 budget and amended 2021 budget. So that's the process there. And certainly, the Budget Advisory Board and myself will keep an eye on your strategic plan as it develops and try to make some progress in implementing some recommendations in the tentative budget, that align with your strategic goals. And then, of course, there'll probably be quite a few outstanding items that the Commission will have to make decisions on in those meetings in November. And that's all I have for now. I'll turn it over to Mallory.
Okay, I am on my phone and the computer because my internet is not great at the moment. But I know that there's a lot of folks on, so I'll keep it short. For our hybrid meetings, we are ordering a few televisions, so where there's a whiteboard, we'll have a large screen so that everybody attending can see, regardless of where you're sitting and the angle. We'll also have one kind of on the floor in front of the dais. So there are things still moving forward. We're looking at different options, and I believe we'll be getting at least one camera installed. So I just wanted to let you all know it is moving along. And just a lot of experimenting as we go. A few other things you'll hear from me about later tonight would be our special event ordinance. And I've been spending a lot of time on that, as you'll painfully have to hear once again. So that's all that I have right now.
Thank you, Mallory. Thank you very much. We are to department reports. Our first report is from Renee Baker, report from Personnel Services. Renee, welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm going to share my screen here. And apparently have to grant access. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. All right, Mallory, you may have to be my backup.
Okay, I'll pull it up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, can
Great,
we
thank you,
see?
Mallory. We can, yeah, absolutely. So just on that first slide, I'm Renee Baker. I'm the Personal Services Director for Grand County, and that means that my department handles really the human resources, the risk management, and the payroll functions for the county. So currently we are staffed with 2 employees, myself and Angie Martinson, our payroll coordinator. On the second slide, you'll see our current mission. The mission of the Personal Services Department really is to provide support for all employees who are there to service the public. We try and show up for that mission every day by providing a work environment that's inclusive and characterized with open communication, mutual trust, and offer an equal opportunity for personal and professional development. We try and serve as the catalyst to ensure that the employees have success in serving the county's mission, and trying to keep that focus on that human resources are truly our most valued assets. On slide 3 there, Mallory. So what does my department do? We handle compliance, really handling that entirety of the employee career cycle, performance management, as well as payroll and benefit administration, and risk management and workplace safety. So compliance really looks like reviewing and staying up to date on federal, state, and local laws and regulations. Many of those exist, covering a wide range of human resources practices and recruiting, hiring and performance management, as well as compensation and health and safety. Policies are communicated to the employees through the employee handbook and its amendments. And you'll see the last approved version of the employee handbook was back in 2014. So I am currently working on that updated draft to hopefully have completed and ready for review by the end of the year. Moving to employee career cycle management. So really this is where I get to spend the bulk of my time. Starting with recruitment, we make sure that we review any open position and job descriptions for an accurate representation of duties needed to perform, collaborate with department heads on the needs of their department, and then advertise and post those positions. And then we take the candidates through the hiring process and kind of serve as the middleman between the candidate as well as the county interview panel to ensure that we can select a successful candidate. And once this candidate is selected, we'll onboard that employee. So my department serves as the first point of contact for a lot of new employees. We try to ensure that they understand the expectations and the duties of their position and that they know where to start if they have any questions about anything. And then review and discuss any benefit options, as well as providing access to the tools that they may need for their position. And then moving on, kind of running side by side is developing and retaining employees. So my team provides data to review positions for proper job descriptions and grading, as well as reviewing and discussing employee development goals and work with department heads and employees if the need for coaching is there. We try to always have an open door so that employees know that they can come into my department and have that open and honest communication about their work within Grand County, any issue that they may have or need some assistance with, and then administer that pay for performance plan. And then of course, there's kind of an end to all things, though we're always excited to see employees reach that big milestone of retirement within the county. We do understand there's other reasons to leave their organization. So we assist by administering an exit interview, as well as handling anything that's going to happen with their benefits and setting up any retirement contacts that we can. And then from there, we would start over on the cycle. So moving on to performance management. So department heads annually complete employee evaluations. This vital process is there to collect and give employees feedback and make sure that they understand their position and duties. Employees really do have 2 ways of increasing their steps. So when we create a position, we put that on the grade and step chart. And really the position is on the grade, and then the employee is really in control over their steps. So the milestone is an offering available to all employees. It starts in their second year of employment and continues every other year after that. And this was just based on their annual review and meeting some of the performance metrics. And then to fill in the blanks in the years in between, employees have the opportunity to opt into the exemplary program. And this is based on performance, but also setting an individual professional development plan with goals that are outside of their job description or duties, and that they and their supervisors have set and worked on. The exemplary reviews are sent to a committee prior to approval, and then the employee can move forward on steps as well. And then should it come to the point, I collaborate with department heads and employees on the need for coaching or discipline. Another big section of my department is payroll and benefit administration. So we did transfer payroll into the personnel services department in February of 2020, and we currently operate a bi-weekly payroll process for about 200 employees on average. We can process this fully remotely if needed, and we handle all payroll functions. So that also includes the processing of federal and quarterly state reports, and working with the clerk's office on the annual audit. Our 2020 payroll spend was about 8.5 million, which is pretty average for our organization. And then really the reason it made sense for us to move payroll into my department would be that I was already handling benefit administration. And those two things really go hand in hand. So we have on average about 150 employees on our medical plan. We insist in making sure that employees understand their benefits and that they're using them correctly. Also help if any claims kind of go out of whack there, make sure that they get on track and paid. And also discuss and set up employee trainings over the Utah retirement system. Our annual benefit spend is about $2.7 million. And then really the last big chunk of my department would be handling risk management and workplace safety. So I serve as the chair of the Safety and Accident Review Committee. We try to review all accidents and potential liabilities that may exist within the county and vote if they're preventable or non-preventable, and recommend any policy changes or actions that may be needed. And we also work with the trust, which is our insurance company, to handle any of those annual reviews. My office also handles the workers' compensation claims. So we file those and make sure they run those through start to finish and get the employee back to work as soon as possible. We also participate in a yearly workers' comp audit that reviews, it's pretty extensive audit that reviews making sure that we have all employees set in our workers' comp system correctly. And for the last 2 years, we've actually seen a refund come back from that audit. And then as the risk manager, I also participate yearly in the annual insurance review with our clerk's office, reviewing our workers' comp and liability coverage, as well as working on reviewing and establishing any safety programs and trainings to our employees. You'll see some stats over to the side there. The first one being our EMOD factor. And as we get into our insurance review for liability and workers' comp, we'll get a little bit more into that. But what the EMOD is, it stands for experience modification factor. And the baseline for that is all insurance companies look at it as a 1-for-1. So for every it's really spending dollar for dollar on your policy. So currently for 2021, we're at 1.33, meaning that we're spending $1.33 per dollar on our workers' comp policy. So really our goal is to strive to get this lower through lower claims and get that going, and then be getting a discount on our policy. The other stat you'll kind of see there is that we had 8 workers' comp claims filed in 2020. While 8 might seem like a lot, we have over about 200 employees and numerous volunteers. And the nice thing about all of these 2020 claims is that they were medical only, so that there was no time wasted or time away from work on any of the claims. The next slide, Mallory, I just had some things I wanted to bring up, but didn't quite know where to put them. So of course, we're working on that 2022 salary survey to look at some salaries within the county for the 2022 budget. Also, we should be seeing a medical insurance renewal here in the next couple of weeks, and always looking for ways to reduce our benefit claim spend without reducing any of the benefits to our employees. And then we're working on updating many of our policies and procedures within the department and within the county. I currently serve on the board of IPMA HR Utah, which is a great public sector focused group. We were named Best Chapter of the Year for the Western region, and we're hoping to have an annual conference actually here in Moab in November of 2021. And then in June, I got a chance to meet with the UAC HR affiliate group with a spring retreat here in Moab. It was a great retreat, and we were able to chat with a lot of the directors across the state. I did obtain my assurance certification in February of 2020, and I'm currently participating in the NACO high performance leadership class that started in August of 2021, and that's just a great offering, being able to provide public sector employees with real and results-driven leadership skills. And then I have some metrics here just from COVID in 2020. So of course, due to the pandemic, we were faced with some difficult decisions and some uncertainty, especially in the beginning. So a lot of the department heads made the tough decision to furlough employees, and we furloughed 23 employees across the departments from about mid-April to July, end of July there. And we were able to bring back all but 3 of these positions due to some budget issues there. But this resulted in an estimated savings about $209,000 to the county, and we didn't cut off any benefits, so employees still received their insurance benefits while they were furloughed. Most of the county operations were able to remain open or shift work to remote work, so I wanted to give a big shout out to the administration and all of the department heads for being able to truly adapt and meet the community's needs during this time. And then we saw several rounds of federal funding that assisted in those unemployment payments, as well as coverage of employee hours for COVID sick leave, as well as mitigation of COVID. And COVID has kind of changed a lot of our policies and also kind of the shifting the way we work into the future. So we'll keep our eye on that. On the general side there, we had about 22 new hires within 2020, even though it was kind of a slow and challenging year. The average length of employment across the county is 7.75 years. That's including part-time employees and seasonals. We have a lot of seasonals who come back year to year, which is always a great, exciting thing. And then the full-time is almost close to 10 years. So it's always great to retain those people moving forward. On average, we have about 140 full-time employees and about 60 part-time employees. And then for 2020, our turnover rate was about 7.2. Really seeing that below 10% is always a great goal. And we actually had 3 employees in 2020 who retired, and I think we're already surpassed that in 2021. So it's always exciting to get them to that milestone. And then since I have a moment of some free advertising, I thought I would put up our current and open positions within the county. So on slide 11 there. Wait, there we go. The Grand Center is looking for 2 senior nutrition clerks. Those benefits are offered through SULOGs. They're a little bit different from the counties, but starting at $18 an hour. We have 2 dispatcher 1 positions open. That starts about $18.25 an hour. Of course, patrol and corrections deputy are open. Those start about $22.19 an hour. And I want to make it known that we cover posts, so you don't need to come to us post certified. We'll take you through that process. The IT support tech, which is full-time, starting at $20.13 an hour. We have 2 OSTA facility workers open, which are starting at $16.55, and we actually have an agenda item later on about that. And then we're sad to see Elaine go, but that position is posted starting about $65,000 a year. And then moving on, we do have some part-time positions open as well, the seasonal weed control tech, the trails ambassador, as well as the youth services library clerk. Trails ambassador and the library clerk are mostly weekend hours, but very part-time. So the full postings are up at grandcountyutah.net/jobs, and then also within the main entrance of the courthouse. Resumes can always be submitted online as well to gchr@grandcountyutah.net, or if you'd like to drop them off in person. So thank you so much for listening to me. It's the first time my department has given a report to the commission, as I have always been under the attorney's office. So I am happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions? You want to put down the screen? Thank you. Any questions? Renee, that was very comprehensive. Thank you. Questions? It's great to see this department so professional and doing so much. And it's your leadership that's moved it in that direction. Welcome, Kevin. Welcome. Kevin Walker, Commissioner, has joined. Kevin, do you have anything you would like to report since you missed the section on, or wait, is there any questions for Renee? I didn't see any.
I just wanted to also say thank you very much, Renee, for your steady presence and your professionalism that the commission office can rely on. And I just see you as such a great advocate for county staff, and we're really glad to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Kevin, did you have anything you would like to report for your general commission reports and future considerations?
I think everything I did, there were other commissioners that, but very briefly, Jacques and I gave an update to Congressman Curtis about our progress thus far on public lands bill. And I think, like many of you, I also had a meeting with the Park Service about the timed entry system.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you very much. We are now to another department report, Berlin, on the Grand Center. Berlin? Is she here?
Can you? Okay. In 2020, from January to March, we had 35 events that included meetings and a wedding and the free dental clinic. And for senior services, congregate meals from January, March, and February. February, March, we served 1,305 meals to 98 unduplicated people. For our home delivered meals, we served 3,051 meals to 70 unduplicated people. And our transportation, we provided 170 rides for 4 unduplicated people. And that was just going to the grocery store and coming to lunch. Our activities, we did 65 unduplicated people, and that's our exercise classes, crafts, quilting, and table tennis. On March 16th, we closed the center and started doing our home delivered meals only. And we served 36,605 meals to 258 people from March 16th to December 31st. So we added 186 people to our delivery, and 66 of them were those that came to congregate meals, and 120 came from in the community that were over 60. We split it up into 2 routes, starting with Brooke helping in the kitchen and doing a route, and Brenda doing the other route. And in April, we furloughed 2 of the maintenance and started 3 routes, which I took 1 and Brooke and Brenda did the other 2. And then in June, one of our cooks quit. So Brooke went full-time into the kitchen and I started a different route, her route, and Yordi took the route I was doing. And then Ken quit the end of July. So I went in the kitchen and Joe came back on furlough, and he took that route. And then Brooks took a different route. We cut Maps Apartments and Rock Ridge Apartments into a route. She delivered to those, and we had 15 at those apartments. So, yeah, we were doing about anywhere from 180 to 210 meals a day through the year. And we still don't have the extra cooks in the kitchen. So, and while maintenance was gone, the office staff would go out and do yard work and then do home delivered meals and help in the kitchen. And that's the end of my report.
Sounds like you have quite a team that's willing to step up and do what needs to be done. That's quite impressive. Yes.
And then I also, when we did have some go out for COVID because they were exposed, Tim Graham volunteered and took one of the routes for a few days to help fill in. So, yeah, I mean, we were busy.
Well, thank you for your service. Any questions or comments from the commission?
Well, I'd just like to make a comment, that the Grant Center staff have been working obviously understaffed, and recently we worked with the ALG to bump up the cooks' wages, but I still don't think they're enough to get any applicants, and so probably have to do some sort of emergency work on the salaries over there, and I'll discuss this a little bit more. We're having the same issues in a lot of places across the county, out of OSTA as well. But want to really give credit to Berlin and her crew. They've done a great job, and I just want to make it clear, how important their job is during COVID. They're serving the seniors in this community, and have done a tremendous job of helping to keep them safe. And I think that it's very important work that they're doing. And I just want to say thanks for leading. And we're going to work to, with the ALG or whoever we have to get those wages up so that we can get some cooks hired for y'all.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much. We are to a presentation on the proposed expansion of Arches National Park. Walt Dabney.
Eric, could I give a very quick introduction? Well,
oh, certainly, Kevin. I appreciate that.
Okay. Hopefully Walt will unmute himself and share his screen soon. So as we've talked about in several meetings before, the Grand County is in the process of trying to craft a proposal for a public lands bill. One aspect of that will be, or could be, an adjustment to the boundaries of Arches National Park to kind of make them more rational, more manageable. This is a proposal that's been on the table for a long time, and Walt has been involved with it a long time. I expect this will be a relatively non-controversial aspect of the bill, and I'll let Walt take it from here.
Thank you, Kevin.
Mary, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, let me see if I can get this presentation up. I am not a techno wizard. Looks like maybe this is going to work. Anyway, thanks for having me. My name's Walt Dabney, and appreciate you taking the time to I want to learn about this park expansion piece for Arches. I think Jim Webster is also on here, and as all of you know, Jim was the chief ranger at Arches for a long time and was instrumental in putting this proposal together. Mary, I think you were on there, and maybe Evan when we did this presentation, or a version of it for the Public Land Initiative presentation back. That was, I think, 2015. And the county council then passed this as a recommendation to be included in the PLI. Kevin asked me to come in and present that again to you today. So if I can today. Anyway, Arches, it's been fun listening to you all talk about the reservation system or timed entry system, something we struggle with for a long time, and I'm excited to see that proceed forward. I think you guys will find interesting, find out who's to blame for all these people coming here to Moab. In 1923, there was an old guy by the name of Alexander Ringhofer, who was a Hungarian immigrant who was living in what is Salt Valley in Arches National Park. And he was a prospector. 1923 Arches didn't exist. He was a prospector, and as he wandered around looking for, I think maybe copper, he completely fell in love with this place, got so excited about it, and the remarkable thing is he decided that this would make an incredible destination for tourism into this part of Utah. And he got a hold of some representatives from the Denver and Rio Grande Western Railroad and invited them out, got them all excited about these things they were seeing here in Arches. And he called what is now Klondike Bluffs, Devil's Garden. Later on, it got changed to where it is now as far as the naming process. But anyway, he got people fired up about the things that were in this magical land. And in 1929, he had enough interest generated, or they had enough interest generated, that President Herbert Hoover set aside this piece, these two pieces, as Arches National Monument. In 1938, it was expanded by Franklin Roosevelt. 1960, it was expanded by Dwight Eisenhower. In 1969, Lyndon Johnson added some more to Arches. And in 1970, the monument became Arches National Park, signed into law by Richard Nixon. One of the things, and I still don't have a clear view why they did that, one of the things they did was they removed this piece of then Arches National Monument out of the new park, presumably because they did not want to increase any acreage size in the monument for whatever reason. In 1998, Jim Webster and I were both working on this project with Chris Cannon, who was our congressman at the time, and he agreed to sponsor a bill which added the Lost Springs Canyon, which is this area right here, to Arches, about just under 3,200 feet. I'm sorry, 3,200 acres. When we were doing the proposal in 2015 to the PLI, one of the things that was a critical piece we thought was the dry mesa, which was taken out, it was in the monument, it was taken out. Dry mesa, that was the north window at Windows. Dry mesa is this piece of country right in here, nearly 10,000 acres. You have to get to it by coming through Arches National Park now. If you're standing in the north window and looking out, you're looking at Dry Mesa, all this country out in here. That presumably would be open to oil and gas development or anything else now, which would be, that's the wrong place to do that sort of thing. It makes complete sense to just add this whole Dry Mesa, probably down to the river, back into the Arches Park. If you're standing at Delicate Arch, you're looking at Dry Mesa right here, which again, you would not want to be doing anything that would compromise the iconic view probably in the state of Utah, looking through Delicate Arch and up into the LaSalle Mountains. There certainly doesn't need to be any human-made things in that view in the future. So if we were to add that, we would be this purple line is the current Arches boundary. This blue line, or maybe down to the river, would be the addition of dry mesa, and then coming around this way, following the canyon systems and so forth. The next piece that I want to talk about briefly is this piece of Lost Spring Canyon, which was added by Chris Cannon, signed by President Clinton in 1998. Lost Spring Canyon is a canyon that runs north out of Arches National Park. We added, like I said, nearly 3,200 acres in that area, but we stopped the boundary without going all the way up into the canyon, which didn't make any sense, except that there was a permittee that didn't want it up there because he actively used that area in his cattle operation. We went in 1998 and actually looked at what that looked like. Now this is the boundary now into at Lost Springs. So if you come this side of the fence, you're in Arches. If you continue up the Lost Spring Canyon, you're out of Arches. These are the facilities that in 1998 were supposedly instrumental in the cattle operation there. They clearly had not been used. Jim and I have been back into this area. This is actually completely covered with sediment now. The structures are no longer serviceable. They're historic in nature now. They were used obviously in the past, but this place is really not used. It would make complete sense to run this up to the canyon rims and include the whole of Lost Spring Canyon in the Arches National Park. The next place is Salt Valley, and this is where our friend Alexander Ringerhoff lived up there. Pretty Spartan existence, I'm sure, but that's where he explored from to go into rest of Arches. Salt Valley is a anticline. Salt collapse formed this valley. As you go up the valley, the boundary is this piece right here that cuts across what is clearly continuation of this collapsed salt dome valley, and there seems to be no logical reason of why they would have drawn the boundary there. If you drive into Salt Lake, you can see the left and the right sides of this valley. You all of a sudden in the middle of the valley come to a cattle guard, and now you're leaving Arches, and you're into BLM land. When we looked at this, it made real sense that carry this on out to about this point right here, where the valley necks down, Salt Valley necks down, makes an obvious geographic or geologic end to the park. And if you go any further outside of there, this is what you run into, and it would make no sense for that certainly not to be in the park. But the valley itself would be a great addition and would make it a more complete feature in the park. The total acreage for this proposal is about 19 or 20,000 acres. This is the boundary of Arches right now. What we would be adding is this area of dry mesa up here to Lost Spring, follow the Moab tongue, a geologic feature around here, and then along the ridge line along Salt Valley without going out at all into any of the mountain bike areas out here. It would just be to include Salt Valley. Again, about 19,000 acres. The county council at the time in 2015 thought this was a good proposal. I appreciate that Kevin wanted to have you all look at it again. It still seems like a very logical suggestion to me, and certainly from a management standpoint, makes a lot more sense. And I would be glad to answer any questions anybody had about this. And I will back out of if I can figure out how to do that, back out of the presentation.
I have a couple comments and a question, Walt, if I may.
Certainly.
Well, my comments are, you know, we live in a world today where we don't want to take any personal responsibility. So I am so glad to know who is responsible for what happened in Moab. And I appreciate that comment. That Ringerhoff, I'm going to remember his name. So we can pass that on to him. But that history was really cool. And the presentation was just excellent. Just phenomenal. I really appreciate that. And there was some history that you provided that I did not know. So I really appreciate that. But I guess my only question is about the permittee. I mean, do they still have an active permit in that area?
You know, Commissioner, I am not sure. I can find that out, or we can find that out for you very easily. But if you go in there, and you may have been into the head of Lost Spring before, there's no evidence that it's being used. I mean, we were in there a year or so ago, and it's worse than those pictures I showed you as far as abandonment and lack of use. I didn't see any cattle. I didn't, again, the facilities are not usable. The water trough completely buried in silt. So at the time, which was 1998, that's 20 something years ago now, the permittee was out of Colorado, and that permit may have been retired. If it's okay, Jim Webster, I think, is on here, and he might actually know the answer to that.
That would be great. Jim, if you know it, that would be great.
This is Jim, and I do not know the answer to that, unfortunately.
That's okay. I was just wondering. I mean, I've done a lot of work with the Division of Wildlife, and I know we bought out permittees, you know, that were active in places that they wanted to, you know, retire those permits. So I didn't see it as a huge obstacle. I was just wondering about it. Thank you.
Yeah, and that process was used back in the original Lost Spring edition, where he was compensated a allotment, I guess you could say. But that's a BLM answer, probably, or they would have that answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Walt. That was a great presentation. It was really nice to see the historical maps and realize what a long-term process these public land designations are. People, you know, I guess it's been close to 100 years now since Arches National Monument was first established. Would you and Jim be willing, or maybe you already have this written down, just kind of a few paragraphs about each of the boundary decisions? Like I noticed that your maps drew the boundary at Dry Mesa at the top of the cliffs, but you mentioned that maybe the river would make more sense. Just sort of, you know, outlining the small choices that are being made around the perimeter.
We'd be glad to do that. Absolutely. And Kevin and commissioners, I also, Mallory loaded this. Mallory loaded this on your computer there. So you have this presentation if you want to look at those maps or at those historical changes. So she's got them for you.
Yeah, and I would just throw out, I didn't zoom in on some of those borders in Salt Valley on kind of the northern end there, but there's some established climbing areas out there as well. And they're starting to kind of creep into some of the towers along the wash. And I believe that there's BLM permits that are recreation permits that are issued out there. So just as you're sensitive to established bike trails, it'd be nice to kind of treat the climbing areas the same way, as long as the Park Service is gonna not be as friendly to climbers as they once were.
Yeah, Evan, maybe you could also send me or the rest of the commission a map with those areas on them. That would be very useful to have.
Great.
Thank you all for the invite, and if I can help you, let me know.
Thank you, Walt, and thank you for your participation and your assistance. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Walt.
Bye now.
We are now moving to general business and action items, discussion and considerations of.
Chair, if I may interrupt.
Yes, you may.
At the request of the chair, I'd like to make a motion to move item N, presentation and possible action regarding mask mandates, up to the first item that we see in during general business action items.
Motion by Gabriel Wojtek. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jacques Hadler. We will now move into item N, presentation and possible action item regarding mask mandate.
Do we want to do a vote on that, Mary?
Oh, I think that's probably your best choice, our best choice. So thank you. Motion by Gabriel, seconded by Jacques. All in favor? Where are you, Sarah? Are you? I can't see, but anyway, I think it passes unanimously. We will move to item N. And what we will be, the action item would be approving a letter. But before we go on to that, I would like our health experts to have an opportunity to talk about why you're recommending such a motion. So, Dr. Cole, would you like to begin, or Brady?
So Chair, I will speak for a moment and pass it along to some others that are on. The intent of this part of the meeting is for my formally letting the board know that the health department will issue a mask mandate that is intended for those attending kindergarten through 6th grade in Grand County schools when they are indoors, with some exceptions which have been established in previous mandates throughout Utah in the past year. We are past the time in this pandemic when the health department can stand alone with an order like this. And I've appreciated the Grand County Commission, a proactive approach to some of the orders that have been enacted in the past year. But I've been very appreciative of an opportunity to discuss with the chair, with the school district, with the hospital, some of the feelings that they're hearing, what is happening locally, nationally as schools are reopening, and why it is valuable to take this 30 days to evaluate how this mandate can protect our children. Last summer, we saw very few cases in our pediatric population that ballooned from essentially one case per month in the summertime. Granted, the pandemic was very in its infant stages in Utah, but that pushed to an average of about 22 cases per month during the school year in Grand County in pediatric cases. During this summer, we've hovered about 10 cases in the pediatric population, with the expectation that as we get back to school, particularly with the Delta variant as the dominant strain in Utah, that would affect the student population, and particularly those that have no opportunity to be vaccinated. For that reason, it is focused on the K through 6 grade level. The intent would be to have that take effect on Thursday morning at 7 o'clock and last for 30 days. At this point, I'd like to, there are some representatives from Moab Regional Hospital on as well that I'll refer to them.
Thank you, Brady, and thank you, council members and chairperson for hearing us. For my part, I do want to say that I think in communications with several of the constituencies that have been involved in this difficult decision, we want to stress that I think, you know, we are no more excited about this news than anyone else in the community. That we're all at a point in the continued experience of this this struggle and this pandemic that we wish that we could be bearers of better news and could share a message that by fiat the pandemic is over. But unfortunately, it's not the case, and not what the facts and the reality are presenting. The newer variants, and in particular the Delta strain, is certainly changing the situation significantly for where we stand in the pandemic at this point, and it is continuing to create a situation where I think it continues to be really necessary for us to take important steps to be able to minimize the harms on our community, and certainly on our most vulnerable, including those children under 12 years old who are not eligible for vaccination. I do have a few slides. It's a very brief slide deck, mostly just to kind of introduce some of the trends in terms of trajectories of where we stand now as compared to other points in the pandemic. I'll share that now. Are you all seeing that? So just in brief introduction, this slide is just basically showing the CDC circulation, basically prevalence rates for COVID across the country. Currently, here we are in Grand County in very high transmission range at this point in time. And so we'd ask ourselves why, in a situation in which you know, across the state and the country, vaccination rates are among the eligible population upwards of, you know, variably, but overall upwards of 60 to 70%. And this really boils down to the new variants, and the Delta variant in particular, which is just a much different virus we're dealing with now than we did for most of 2020. It's more contagious, it spreads faster, and there is evidence in some global studies that have looked at severity that it may cause more severe illness than previous strains. Looking specifically at the question of the child and adolescent age group, this graph shows hospitalization rates, hospital admissions for those 0 to 17 years old. And I do think the note is a very clear and very different type of trend line that we're dealing with right now than what we've seen at any time thus far in the pandemic. Starting with early July of this year, we're just sort of no longer on the map of what we were previously seeing in terms of the situation for hospitalizations in those under 18. To put some numbers to that, in the last week, based on CDC data, we had about 1,800 kids hospitalized, which is a 500% increase since early July. And just, you know, to put kind of the local spin on that, we have seen some situations. We've had a young child hospitalized here at our local hospital. So sometimes I think in our relatively sheltered oasis of Moab, we can kind of lose sight on that we share the same risks that we see in some of these more populous areas across the country. But we certainly are seeing those sorts of trends in Utah as well. To bring that into our local state, this shows hospitalization trend lines over the last year and a half in Utah, and the red is general hospital admissions, and the turquoise is ICU. One thing that we clearly noted in Utah in particular last year was that the fall surge that started with returning to school. At that point in time, last August, we were at a situation of very low transmission, and that return to school started a trend line that led to the surge we saw through the fall and winter months. Here we are right now at a much higher transmission rate, facing our kids going back to school, and keeping in mind that all throughout 2020 we took a layered and multifaceted approach towards reduction of transmission in schools, which was highly successful in Grand County and other places in Utah as well, including wearing of masks. This is another graph that shows some of the same data. In particular, of note, this is showing in blue, our Utah caseload trend lines of 2020, and up to this point in time, early August in 2021 in orange. For overall case numbers, and you can see we're higher than we were a year ago, which we looked at in the last graph. But I think more significantly here is when you look at the hospitalization trends, and you really see a divergence. Since the introduction in early July of the Delta strain, we've seen a higher hospitalization rate across the population with COVID than we were seeing throughout the majority of last year. So that is to say that that those risks with an increasing number of cases also translates to a significant increase in hospitalization rates, which do pose a real challenge to the healthcare system and whether they can keep up with those kinds of numbers. We've had situations just over the last 4 to 6 weeks, difficulty with our regional ICUs being unable to accept transfers, being full at this point. And again, I think even with reasonable and mitigated layered approaches towards prevention of increased spread, we're likely to see an increase in those case numbers with going back to school. So our hope here is several-fold, is to take those reasoned steps that we saw were effective last year to minimize the amount of disruption for kids throughout the school year by way of isolation for infected cases, by way of quarantine for those contacts of infected kids, and to minimize the in-school transmission. We recognize, as has been pointed out rightly so by many, that in-person school is absolutely essential for our kids, and that's really our goal, is to continue to minimize the disruption and optimize the ability of those kids to be able to stay in school and to be able to maximize their learning environment. Masks are part of that layered approach. The layered approach includes things we've heard about in terms of social distancing, including vaccination for those who are eligible, maximizing our ventilation, screening, testing, hand washing, respiratory etiquette, staying home when sick, all of these things which by now are second nature in our vocabulary, continue to be important. Masks are one of those tools. Masks work in multiple ways, primarily by helping with source control, so that a minimally symptomatic individual who may be infected does not transmit the virus to others as readily and as effectively. Cloth masks are highly effective in achieving that goal. We've seen that in an extensive number of studies and global and nationwide experience over the last 18 months. And the benefit of masks largely is to those around the individual. So when I as a parent very much feel for a sentiment that we would like to be able to make health decisions that affect our children. And I also realize, and I ask those in the community to realize, that when we choose not to wear a mask in settings of high risk transmission, we're also choosing for the health of all of those children around our child. And I would ask us all to think about the parents of those in the community who have kids with a chronic illness, with a congenital heart disorder, with asthma, with a high risk condition. And those kids may choose to wear a mask, and that does derive some protection for themselves, but the effectiveness of masks rises truly exponentially for people that are wearing them, and that's by way of the source control. I have heard some very good questions around where is the science to support the policies we're recommending, and I would definitely encourage anyone interested in deep diving into the science to look at the science briefs put out by the CDC. Very recently, they updated an article, well referenced. You can go to the primary literature that's cited in this summary that discusses mitigation strategies and steps for prevention in schools, in K-12 schools. Additionally, there's a science brief that addresses the effectiveness of cloth masks to spread to prevent the spread of COVID. We've seen so far around the country that many health districts have opened before ours, and we do have the benefit of being able to learn from their experience. I hope that we can, and that we can, by making this mandate for our kids healthy and in school, and maximizing in that learning environment throughout the year.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cole. You mentioned during our last meeting about the number of ICUs and primary ICUs and such that are being filled up in states that have open schools. Could you share that information?
Yeah, there have been several pediatric healthcare systems that have been really pushed and stretched in their capacity. San Antonio Children's Hospital is one such that recently saw their case numbers dramatically increase. Kids as young as 2 to 6 months old, ICU on oxygen. While overall, it is true that generally speaking, they tend to fare better than adults do. It's by no means a harmless illness for them. And perhaps as importantly as that is that the hospitalization rate for kids seems to trend around 1% of infections. But when you have high numbers of kids getting sick, and 1% of those are getting admitted to the hospital, even if those individuals do well and recover, those hospital beds are full, and kids that may come down with any number of other illnesses, injuries, accidents, aren't able to find a bed. So Texas was one such area in which they had run out of beds, and they were looking at needing to transfer kids potentially out of state, find an ICU bed. The University of Utah and IHC are large health systems, but they've been stretched already. Their adult ICUs have been at capacity. As I mentioned, our Our doctors in the hospital, myself included, have personally had difficulty finding beds for our sick patients that need ICU care. And I'd like to do what we can not to see that happen with our pediatric guys.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Dr. Cole? Evan?
I don't know the time frame if this is coming or it's probably more for Braden, but the 30 days, is there some kind of metric at the end of the 30 days, transmission rate or anything that we'd kind of look at reevaluating, or that you would look at reevaluating?
Certainly we'll compare the transmission rate that we see right now. There was a question on the chat about how many active cases. Looks like we have 6 active pediatric cases in Grand County at the moment. We've had 10 so far this month. So we'll look at the case rate among that age group now versus then, and also compare it to what's happening around the state, and see if there is a positive impact, which we hope for, or if perhaps it doesn't show a difference because of the different community events and everything that we're involved in now at this point in the pandemic. But in terms of a defined number, I don't have anything there.
Thank you. Any other questions for Dr. Cole? Thank you, and stay on in case something comes up. Jen?
I worked with Dr. Cole on his presentation, so I'm just here for support. But in response to Evan's question, you know, in discussing this, really what we're trying to do is protect the whole population of kids under 12 until they can have access to a vaccine. And so when you say how long, you know, yes, transmission rates would play into it, but also it's about getting our school district to a place where parents can choose to get their children the vaccine and protect them, and to keep those kids safe as a community until that day arrives. And so we appreciate the opportunity to bring this, you know, bring this information to our community, and hope that everybody can come together and see this as an opportunity to protect our kids, because I know most people would jump in front of a car to save a kid, and we just don't know who could have a severe illness or death if they get COVID. So we just don't know that. And everybody's kid looks like the healthiest kid. But recently, as we've had a pediatric patient here at Moab Regional Hospital, it starts to hit pretty close to home that these are our kids and we need to do what we can do to protect them.
Thank you very much, Jan. Taryn Kay, Superintendent of Grand County School Districts, do you have anything you would like to add?
Hi, thanks for having all of us on. I would just like to thank Brady and Jen and Dylan and Mary for the extraordinary teamwork that happened to come to an agreement, which we saw in Salt Lake County didn't happen. So I think it speaks volumes for the dedication of the community to protect our kids. And as I've been fielding lots of comments, both on social media, via phone, via email, for the last 24 hours, you know, the one thought that keeps rolling in my head is how many kids is too many? How many kids in the hospital or ICU or worse? And for me, that answer is 1, because if I'm that parent of that kid, that's my kid, that's too many. And we stand at a precipice where we can make a difference. We can prevent some illness, we know, by wearing masks. And I think it is absolutely our duty to do so. And so It's for all the kids. It's actually for the community, so they don't take the disease home to their families. And I just, one kid is too many.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Can I ask Taryn a question?
Certainly, Sarah.
Thank you all for coming. I know you're all very busy, and it's really great to hear the data. I'm also very compelled by the fact that we need to protect our kids, and I just wanted to follow up on some of the comments from parents that we've been getting about mental health. And I know that wearing masks is difficult for kids, and I just wondered, Taryn, if you could speak a little bit to, is the school district adapting in any way, encouraging more outside time, or like taking a different approach to mental health this year?
Yes, actually. Last year we had a lot of mask breaks as well, but because this mask mandate is specifically indoors only, we're still allowing outdoor field trips. So field trips of all kinds were cut off. They didn't happen last year, but this year we're allowing outdoor field trips, recess, obviously. Teachers are encouraged to take their kids out as often or as frequently as their curriculum will allow. Of course, it's hot right now, so it's less easy to take your kids outside for long stretches, but we do at HMK have some areas where that can be possible. And the one other thing I will say is we went through mask wearing all last year, and by and large, the kids are stellar with wearing masks. I think sometimes the adults are more concerned about it than the kids themselves. And you know, the kids, for the most part, really did a good job with mask wearing. But yes, we're super concerned about their social emotional learning, which is why we want to do in-person school. We know that's a huge factor for them. So yeah, teachers will find every opportunity to have mask breaks. That makes sense for sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
And we did discover last year that with the mask mandates, flu and strep and other illnesses that were so common in the school setting in years before were almost nil. And so the masks worked not just to protect us from COVID, but from other illnesses that spread. And so, yes. Any other questions from our commission? What we're doing today, what we would be voting on, is a letter showing support so that this can move ahead without that anxiety that our commission could turn around like the Salt Lake City Commission did, or their council, and turn this over on its head. We want to make sure that it is in writing and very clear that we as a commission are behind and support our local health people, our hospital, our doctors, our health district, and our superintendent. We have a letter. It was unable to make it into the packet that we can read, that I will read, and then I will entertain a motion to accept the letter. It is to Taryn Kay, Superintendent of Grand County School District, Brandon Bradford, Director Health Officer, Southeastern Utah Health Department, Jennifer Sadoff, CEO, Moab Regional Hospital. Letter of support for mandate-based coverings at HMK Elementary School. Dear Ms. Kay, Ms. Bradford, and Ms. Sadoff, the Grand County Commission would like to recognize the staff and administration of Moab Regional Hospital for its unflinching and diligent response throughout the pandemic. We would like to also recognize the Southeastern Utah Health Department for its careful, thoughtful, and evidence-based response and expertise in guiding the community through the pandemic. Lastly, we would like to show our great pride in the students, family, teachers, administrators of Grand County School District for overcoming immense challenges in completing the 2021 school year and preparing for another complete year during a very turbulent period in our history. In the face of the current surge of COVID-19 cases and the highly contagious Delta variant, the Grand County Commission offers its support to the Southeastern Utah Health Department in issuing a 30-day mask order for K through 6 students in Grand County. This is not an ideal course of action and one not taken lightly given the challenges associated with masking for our children, families, and teachers and school administrators. As always, we as Commission respect and respond to the concerns and recommendations given by health professionals and school administrators in keeping the community safe and our children in a position to thrive. The availability of ICU beds in our region continues to dwindle or remain non-existent, and the community is currently in a crisis with regards to its ability to respond to any further surges in COVID-19 transmission. Surges left unchecked by reasonable and proven methods for reducing transmissions have a disturbing domino effect on our healthcare system and overall public health. A hospital battling to treat severe COVID-19 cases becomes less able to treat and respond to the everyday common care needed that arises in the community. The health department becomes left with little time or energy for productive public health efforts and the provisions of resources to community members who most need it. At this time, it is the duty of the Grand County Commission to support this effort in protecting the health, safety, and well-being of its population. We urge the citizens of Grand County to continue to be vigilant, exercise basic precautions, measures, receive vaccinations if possible, and take a cautious approach so that we as a community feel comfortable allowing this order to expire, and we as a community can achieve the universal shared goal of overcoming this pandemic and avoiding any further disruption to everyday life. Sincerely, Grand County Commission. And I want to acknowledge Gabriel Wojtek for being the major author of this letter. Discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
Mary, I'll make a motion to provide a letter of support that will instill a mask mandate for K through 6 students within Grand County School District for a 30-day letter.
Thank you, Tricia Dean. A motion by Tricia Dean. Do I have a second?
I'd like to second that, Mary.
We have 2 seconds, Gabriel and Jacques. I'm sure Jacques has students in HMK. He is anxious to see this happen. Do we have any discussion? Or does anybody want to make a comment?
I'll just make a couple quick comments, Mary. I'm an educator. I was within the schools when COVID hit, and we produced a mask mandate to get kids back in the classroom. And I was in the high school, so I wasn't in early childhood education or elementary education. However, I will state that, you know, it worked effectively. The little outbreaks that we had were usually sports related, where kids took off their masks. And so I do believe it's an effective tool to mitigate COVID-19. And then the last thing I want to state is, you know, I've seen my father. My father's a logger. He's a tough guy. And I've seen him really scared twice in his life. And one was when my mom died, and the other was when he got COVID. My dad lives in a town, I looked it up during this meeting. He lives in a town of population 44, Denio, Nevada, and he got COVID, and he almost died from it. He was in the ICU in Reno, and eventually they kicked him out because they needed the bed. And so it's real. And I come from a very conservative background, and it rattled his cage, and it rattled all of our cages. So I believe that we're doing the right thing.
Thank you, Trish. Any other comments?
I'd like to say, yeah, I'd like to say thanks to Braden and Taryn, Jennifer, and Dylan for joining us and making these super hard decisions. I do have 2 children at HMK, and I feel much safer sending them to school with the mask mandate. And both of my daughters told me that they feel safer going to school with the mask mandate. So I think we're making the right decision here.
Thank you. Any other?
Yeah, I would also echo that. I appreciate that you guys taking the heat. You know, this isn't our decision to make. I'm happy to support those hard decisions that you're making. I recognize that this, as it's drafted, is for the students, and I hope that adults are willing to fall in line with it as well. And just, you know, to other members of the community, I can't say enough that the vaccines are working, that the states with high vaccine rates have low transmission, and the states with low vaccine rates have high transmission. So the sooner that we can get higher vaccination rates in our community, the sooner we won't be having these hard conversations. So thank you guys for shouldering these hard decisions, and thanks for putting the health and safety of our community children first and foremost.
Thank you, Evan. Anyone else? Gabriel?
Yeah, I just really appreciate and believe in this proactive and preventative approach, and just not leaving this up to chance, and taking this really practical and reasonable measure to help reduce transmission. You know, as far as my own personal experience, I had my 4-year-old start at preschool a couple weeks ago, and due to a positive case in that school facility, you know, we had and because of the nature of the size of that facility and the staffing, you know, school has had to close. And so the disruption to not only the family, but to my daughter has just been really, really difficult. And I just, I'm really, it pains me to think about if, you know, it could still happen even with this order, but you know, if a teacher were to contract COVID, or an individual kid that would then have to, you know, not participate in school due to the infection, that disruption is just really, you know, if it happens over and over to you know, to different parts of the school population, I think that's a lot more disruptive than the need to wear a mask and to be able to curb that transmission. So that's my own personal experience with this, and I just think it's a very smart move, and I appreciate how we've become united about this cause.
Anyone else? Okay, I will call for a vote. All in favor of approving this letter of support, raise your hand or say aye or both. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy day. And my prayer and hope is that we can keep children out of the hospital and in your care. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your leadership, Karen. We are now on item E, approving a request for proposal for land use levels of service analysis not to exceed $60,000. John Gunther.
Hey, Mary. It's a little past 6. Do we want to do the second citizens to be heard before this one?
Probably. Yes. Okay. Second citizens to be heard. We will keep comments to 2 minutes or under. Thank you. Mallory?
Okay, there are a lot of folks on, so if you are here to comment, and you can send a chat, turn on your camera or unmute. We will make sure you are heard.
Make sure you state your name.
Hello, this is Peter Lawson for the Moab mountain biking team.
Yes, hello, Peter.
I'm here making myself available to answer any questions about the proposed race that's being suggested near the Brands Trails. It has a long history, and I can answer questions or I could give any information, but other than that, I'll just sign off now and see if there are any questions. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Are there any questions? Will you be around when we get to this item, Peter?
I can be. I can. I'm in my car in town, or I can, travel to my home and come back in later. You can do whatever you'd like.
Or we could get a hold of you. So yes, if you're in town and ready to go home, I think we're pretty comfortable with this decision. So I don't think you need to hang around. So thank you.
I'll log back in as soon as I get home in about 40 minutes. Thank you very much for your time.
Next.
Okay, Mary, we had some folks jump on. I just want to offer again that if anybody is now on for public comment, to turn on your camera or press star 6 to unmute. And I am not seeing anybody on at this time, Mary, for a comment. So I think we are good to go.
Thank you very much. We are on item E, approving a request for a proposal for land use levels of survey analysis not to exceed $60,000. John Gunther.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary. And tough acts to follow, I have to say. The Arches National Park and COVID. I don't know if I can beat that, to tell you the truth. But we'll put something up here for the commission to look at. This will be kind of in line with, if you're seeing this, kind of in line with the general plan strategic objectives that we've been looking at as a commission, that you've been looking at. And the project scope here is really the backbone of the general plan. And that is to try to get ahead of the curve as far as good, strong, robust land use planning. To take a lot of the land use code amendments that have happened, including overnight accommodation overlays and HDHOs, high density housing overlay, and considering them in a longer term fashion, and others as well. And would link in to the Arches proposals, but also to think about them as far as development is concerned, and in our partnership with not only the National Park and Arches, but also Canyonlands and the state parks. So the proposal is to actually hire a consultant to analyze current zoning and land use elements, and then develop those over time, over the next year, in conjunction with the Transportation Master Plan, which is now underway, and then to establish levels of service. So to take a look at currently where services for water, sewer, stormwater management, including some of the flooding areas, and roads, hazardous lands, steep slopes, and developing a really long-range 20-year horizon for where development can occur and when it should not occur. And to tie that in with especially water, as we've discussed before. The other objective here is to map that very carefully, to make it a visual, and to allow for the commission to actually make decisions around that background data. Community engagement's a big part of this, is to get out into the public and be careful about we don't burn out the public, to take a look at how we would manage that. We also are suggesting that we put a community fact book together. That's item number 10 on the list there, with background documents provided by the county with plan reviews, studies, audit of existing codes, data collection. We have a lot of voices in this community that are really worth listening to. And it's tapping into those voices and creating what I would call a choir that sings together and wants to move ahead together. We may not get complete buy-in for a lot of this, but it's actually very strategic as far as the general plan is concerned. So with that, Mary, I will entertain any questions that the commission might have.
Questions?
I guess my only question for you, John, is this within your budget? I would assume it is, and maybe you already stated that and I missed it. I'm sorry.
I thought that was a Mary question, but that's okay, Trish. Yeah, it is within the budget. We are doing the general plan internally, so hopefully we'll have a good, strong draft to you in September, and this will fit into a later update, so it won't be current, obviously.
So John, maybe you just answered it, but I was wanting you to comment more on the relationship between, is this part of the general plan or it's parallel or
It is a master planning element. So it is one of those things, parks and recreation, transportation, land use, public safety, all of those are master planning elements. They all re-inform the general plan. And so the beauty of a land use plan is it actually integrates a lot of those plans together. So it really is the backbone. When I say the backbone, a general plan is a comprehensive plan that connects all the elements. So public engagement is one of those elements that connects all the elements together. When you think about it, public engagement doesn't just happen in one element, it happens across the board. Strategic planning doesn't happen in one element, it happens across the board. And transportation is much more of a silo, but it's connected too. But land use applies to almost everything that we do. And I'm sure you'll appreciate this, Kevin, both in the built environment and the natural environment.
And that's a good segue to my next question. It was, you mentioned in various places in the document, federal lands. Is that, I'm assuming that this is mainly about private lands in Grand County where our planning and zoning decisions apply, but it's also going to be taking into account federal decisions, or how do you see the relationship?
So that mutual land use planning, because we have a very unique county, as we talked about before, that mutual land use planning with, we have control over public lands, or do we have control over city lands? We don't, or adjacent jurisdictions for like San Juan County. The goal is to actually engage them as part of this process in sharing their land use strategies with ours and to match them. That might be ambitious, but that's the goal.
Good goal. Any other questions? I would entertain a motion.
Mary, I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Trish.
I move to approve the posting of a request for proposals, RFP, for the land use levels of service analysis for a budget not to exceed $60,000. You got that, John? You cannot exceed 60 grand.
Yeah, I wanted to hear that from Mary, though.
Don't exceed. Anyone else? Do I have a second? Thank you, Sarah. Motion by Trish, seconded by Sarah. Discussion? I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, John. We are to item F, adopting a resolution repealing resolution number 2248, 1995 in the relevant part and approving of Hideaway Estate Subdivision, Minor Plat, and Subdivision Improvement Agreement. Mary.
Okay. Good evening. This is a review of the Hideaway Estates final plat subdivision, like Mary said. There are 4 property owners on this particular parcel. The proposed subdivision is on a 3.18 acre parcel of land, and they're proposing to divide it into a 4-lot subdivision on Murphy Lane. It's in an LLR zone district, which is minimum half-acre lots. Each lot is quite a bit bigger than a half acre. There is currently a single-family home on the front lot. They'll be developing the back part of this subdivision of this land. The applicant has worked with the engineer to facilitate the drainage easements, the access easements, the dedication of the needed right-of-way for the width of Murphy Lane, and those dedications are on the final plat and will be recorded as needed. Murphy Lane, as you know, every time there is a land application on Murphy Lane, Spanish Valley Drive, the applicants are required to dedicate the required width of the road, since the road is very narrow and the transportation plan requires it to be bigger. So they're doing that with this application. The county engineer and the FEMA floodplain administrator, Bill Holtz, have reviewed and approved the proposed subdivision drainage. The drainage is in, and it's been approved by our engineer. The Planning Commission reviewed this recommendation and recommended approval of this preliminary plat July of last year. And this application has been vetted to the county attorney's office, and the staff also recommends approval. The county attorney has vetted the resolution, the SIA, the final plat, the actual plat that gets recorded, and all of the development agreements. I also want to say, like I said, this particular subdivision had a preliminary plat a year ago. And I understand the frustrations and appreciate the patience of all the applicants who are backlogged. I just want to say that when I started here, come back to work in March, I filled my whiteboard with applications that needed to be finished. I realized that it was between between COVID and the staff not being around, the frustration of a lot of the applicants, we've heard it and we understand it. We now have a fully staffed office. We're open from 8 to 5 every single day, and our staff is very proficient and very skilled. Half my whiteboard is now wiped off, and tonight I'm hoping to get one more wiped off. So anyway, do you have any questions about the application? Let me know.
I don't have a question, but I want to thank you for stepping in when we needed you and to continue working and helping us get through this backlog.
It's been fun.
You're very much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Questions? I'd entertain a motion then. Oh, wait.
I would just echo that gratitude and the patience and understanding of the applicants, and gratitude towards Mary for
Thank you.
getting these things up in front of us. And with that, I would move to adopt the proposed resolution repealing resolution number 2248 in relevant part to remove tract 1 and approving the final plat for the Hideaway Estates subdivision and subdivision improvement agreements with the following conditions. 1, continue compliance with the county engineer's requirements. 2, the owner shall record the SIA simultaneously with the final plat in the recorder's office. And 3, the owner shall submit an acceptable completion assurance bond for the incomplete public improvements and infrastructure warranty bond for completed accepted public improvements as established in the SIA to the county in the amounts set forth in the SIA prior to recordation of the final plat.
Motion by Evan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Doc. Thank you, Evan. That was a mouthful. Discussion.
I meant for this to be a question for Mary before the motion, but I think, Mary, you said this at the very beginning, but just to confirm, this is a parcel a little over 3 acres, and because of changes in FEMA flood mapping, it is now able to be subdivided in a way that it wasn't in the past?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thanks.
Any further questions or comments? Okay, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the motion? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are now to approving special event permit for the Red Sand Powwow at the Old Spanish Trail Arena. Angie.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So the event that I would like to talk about tonight is called the Red Sand Powwow. This will be the first year for this event. Their intention is to hold this event annually if it goes well. I don't know if this event will go over 1,000, but they're having such a good turnout that I thought it would be safer to go ahead and present it in front of you. What it is they're calling it the Red Sand Powwow. It'll be presented by the SLC Air Protectors and the Full Circle Intertribal Center. This will be the first year for the powwow in Moab with the intentions to hold annually. The event will be 2 days of culture and competition, a celebration of unity and healing. Spectators and performers will have a weekend of dance and drum contests. There will be jewelry vendors along with food vendors. The event sponsor also understands the importance of COVID and has put a mitigation plan in place. So the whole event will be outdoors. They'll be marking out sections of the field to separate the families for the competition, along with a check-in station where they'll have everyone checking in for contact tracing. I know that's not required, but that's something that they're putting into place just because their culture has been hit so hard by COVID. They want to make sure that they're taking those precautions. So currently they're at about 700 participants, and they are putting a hard cap at 1,500.
Thank you. Questions?
You said this was all outdoor?
Yes. It'll be on the soccer field and under the pavilion.
I'd make a motion.
Thank you, Sarah.
I move to, oh, sorry, let me pull it up. I move to approve the Red Sands Powwow at the special event permit. Sorry, everybody.
Thank you, Sarah. We got a motion by Sarah. Do we have a second?
I'll second that, Mary.
Okay, seconded by Trish. Discussion.
I'll just go ahead, Sarah. I'll say I'm excited too. I heard about this on KZMU and heard I don't know if he was the impetus to this event. So I'm really excited to support it. And Angie, thank you so much. I was going to ask you about the COVID protocol, but you covered that and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Sarah, did you have something you wanted to say?
Oh, just I think it's the first powwow in Grand County in 20 years. So I'm looking forward to seeing what it's all about.
Thank you. Any further? All in, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Angie. Approving part-time law clerk job description and pay grade. Renee.
Yes, thank you. I hope I do this item justice and give it the right description. Colleen McGee, our new chief deputy attorney, wasn't able to join us, and Christina's traveling back. So the purpose of a part-time law clerk would be that they're interested in hiring a part-time law clerk to cover about 10 to 25 hours working remotely while somebody's going to law school. Under a Utah rule, there is the possibility that this law student can professionally prosecute cases within the justice court. So that'll take some of the burden off of the current attorney's office, who is very, very, got a lot going on over there. So this position would offer that experience to the law student, but also offer some research help and some help to both the chief deputy attorney and the county attorney. Christina did a great job about writing the agenda summary, kind of describing a little bit more in detail. Can go from there. The we reached out to the college, and they've kind of told us that the general pay range for this type of position is about 15 to 25 hours, depending on their status within the law school and where they're at in their schooling. So that's where we've set it. So it's not on the grade and step chart right now.
Questions?
Was this within budget?
It is.
Any other questions?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Kevin.
Hold up. I move to approve the part-time law clerk job description and placement pay range of the $15 to $25 an hour, depending on experience, and authorize recruitment of and hiring effective August 18th, 2021.
Thank you, Kevin. Do I have a second? Seconded by Evan. Discussion.
I think a law student's going to be a lot cheaper than a lawyer, so I like it.
Okay, seeing no questions, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. We are to approving eliminating OSTA maintenance worker position and moving 2 positions to OSTA maintenance tech. Renee, once again, you're on.
Yes, Chris actually touched on this a bit in his update, but we do have just some struggles getting any applications for this OSTA maintenance worker. So our proposal for this, while we do work on that salary survey to work across all county departments, would be to eliminate the worker positions, which there are 2 of, at the grade 3, and move all of the OSTA positions to a technician level, which is a grade 5. I believe it's within the budget. It's not going to exceed anything for 2021, as Angie's been short-staffed, so there's some savings there. And we'll keep trucking along on our salary survey.
Questions?
So are there 2 people in the worker position now, or just 1?
There's currently 2 positions. Both are unfilled at the moment.
So neither of them are filled.
Correct.
Gotcha.
We only have
Okay.
1 technician out at the arena right now, and then our assistant director and director.
Not enough.
Renee, what would, do you know what the fiscal impact would be like compared to a normal year?
I don't, Sarah, I'm sorry. I think going from a grade 3 to a grade 5 starting is about $3 an hour of an increase. And then benefits wise, there's not too much of a difference.
If the position isn't being filled, I don't know how else we can entice people to do it.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Chris?
I think that the private sector, we've seen in the last couple of years, the sort of entry level, what you might refer to as minimum wage, rise by about $4 to $5 an hour. I think that's a big part of it. But there's also been a tremendous amount of job creation occur within the last 2 years as well. And so, that coupled with affordable housing problems has created a very competitive marketplace for employees. And so I think that, a big part of our salary study that Renee, Mallory, and I are doing is going to be, focusing on the whole county in general, but also how to deal with these lower grades and avoid compression in our step and grade chart. And so it's going to be a bit of a challenge. I think it's a great thing that the private sector is, increasing their wages and now oftentimes offering pretty good benefits as well. That's encouraging to see. But it does put a demand on Grand County to remain competitive. And we're starting to lose that edge. We normally only do a salary survey once every 5 years. So, it's somewhat of an indication that our cost of living adjustments haven't been sufficient to keep up with increased cost of living locally speaking. And so Mallory and I are also working to try to, come up with a better way assessing cost of living specific to Grand County, how it compares with other areas, that type of thing. So this is, sort of a Band-Aid fix, but we're looking at a much more comprehensive countywide approach to dealing with some of these issues. And this is going to be within budget in 2021 because we've had those positions unfilled, but it will obviously increase the budget for 2022. But, it's an unsustainable and untenable position for the OSA staff out there right now. And I don't want Angie and her crew to burn out. And I think that they've been working very, very hard, especially with the fire, et cetera. So we need to do whatever it takes to get them some help out there. That's what this agenda item is about. And I think that, increasing the job duties is a good thing because Angie has that type of work out there for them to do. And so not only does it bump the wage up quite a bit, but it also, provides Angie with hopefully some folks that have more expertise than what she would get with the workers position.
Thank you for that clarification, Chris. Any further questions? I'll call for a motion.
Madam Chair, I would move to approve eliminating the OSTA maintenance worker grade 3 position and moving the 2 positions to OSTA maintenance technician grade 5 effective August 18th, 2021.
Thank you, Evan. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Jacques. Thank you, Jacques. Further questions or discussion? Call for a vote. All in favor? Passes unanimously. We are now to adopting ordinance repealing and replacing Article 9 and amending Article 10 of the Grand County Land Use Code. John Gopher.
And Mallory.
And Mallory. I'm sorry. It wasn't on the, what? Oh, Mallory. I see. Mallory and John.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and share and apologize that you are seeing another suggestion to postpone this. But as we have been diving deeper and doing more and more research, we want to just explore more options, particularly with doing away with the minor records survey and the potential for instead doing a minor subdivision. There are some benefits to expediting the process and making it a little easier for folks. And so we just don't want to make any quick changes when we feel like there's additional research to help the process and to actually help folks in the community.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to postpone.
Mary, I'll make it. Oh, go ahead, Evan.
I was just going to say I appreciate the efforts to streamline the processes and increase efficiency. So with that, I'd move to postpone adopting the ordinance, repealing and replacing Article 9 and amending Article 10 of the Grand County Land Use Code.
Motion by Evan, seconded by Trish.
I'll second that.
Yes, okay. Any further discussion? Call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we are to item K, adopting and repealing and replacing Chapter 8.16, Special Events of the Grand County General Ordinance and related ordinance number 637. Mallory.
Yes, so I know, and I apologize to Gabriel, first of all. He's having to hear this again, as all of you are, but he's gotten hit a little harder with it. But what we're hoping to do, as we've also dug deeper into the special events, is modify particularly the special event committee and make it a special event advisory committee. And what that would do would be making the special event committee a step for reviewing, but the ultimate approval authority would be the clerk auditor. So it's really the same step as business licenses are processed. It goes through all of the referral agencies, It also hits the advisory committee initially to determine if something is completely out of compliance, do a findings of fact, if it should be denied, or try to catch those things up front. So there is a lot of eyes on this and a lot of people reviewing before it goes to the clerk auditor, but it will really help streamline things. Another proposed change you'll see in there is the consideration of a pre-authorization list, which is actually our next agenda item. So that is just an exception to one of the requirements that triggers commission approval. And that is that any event over 1,000 daily participants must go to the commission. And what I've put in there is considering that similar to our procurement list, that we be able to bring something to you all to see if those events could be pre-authorized to allow for the special event advisory committee and likewise the clerk auditor to approve. And it is specific to really events that we see as reoccurring in this community, community, family, youth, culturally oriented. And so if they're over 1,000 and you all would approve them, then they could approve on their own without the added step of coming to you. Let's see, another thing we've proposed is knocking down the insurance requirements down to 1 million and 2 million. And I think it's currently at a 2.4. And then there really isn't much in the way of COVID changes in there right now. It's more just the general processing policies and procedures. And I imagine there might be a lot of questions for this one, so feel free to ask away.
Questions? I read through it and it looks good. Yes, Kevin, were you asking a question?
Yeah, sorry, and I apologize. I have not read the whole thing word for word, but supposing hypothetically that the Special Events Advisory Committee has a backlog, and as the ordinance is written right now, could the clerk just approve things without them acting, or is it sort of required that they, issue a recommendation first?
To be honest, I can't tell you off the top of my head. It should be firmly stated that it is dependent upon the recommendation of the Special Event Advisory Committee, but I think just to be safe, if you all are willing to entertain this, the motion could reaffirm that, just so I could double check and make sure that it's in there. But I also think, similar to business licenses and how they're issued, it would be a very clear-cut process in which the clerk auditor would not feel comfortable acting without that firm recommendation.
I just know there's been times in the past in the county where sort of lines of authority are maybe a little bit unclear, and one part of the county approves something or signs a contract, whereas other parts of the county thought that was so that's the kind, I'm not thinking of Quinn, but if we have some, rogue clerk elected in the future who just loves approving special events.
No, my understanding, Kevin, was that it really wouldn't even get to my desk until it had been through the committee, the advisory committee.
Okay, so that's what I'm asking about.
And that was one thing that I specifically asked Mallory was, someone's going to tell me whether to approve this or not, right? And she said, yes, this has to go through the committee before it gets to me.
Okay, but if you got kicked in the head by a horse or something and suddenly just were really itching to approve things, whether they were, I'm just wondering, could you do it legally, or what you do have to wait for the committee? That's my question.
Yeah, I'd probably have to read through it again to make sure that's expressly written out, but that was my understanding, or that was the intent originally.
Okay, thanks. And my apologies for the violent metaphor there.
That's okay.
And again, if you're willing to entertain in the motion, you could expressly state that, and I will make sure that it's in there. But I would also just remind folks of how the last special event ordinance was approved. The first thing that it does is hit the commission administrator's office, Gabriel as our commission liaison, Christina, Angie, Elaine, or whoever we hire to try and fill her shoes, so that those folks are immediately screening and sending anything back or providing information of, this doesn't comply or be mindful of this. And then it goes to the referral agencies. So all of the departments and agencies that could be affected. And after they review and provide their recommendations for approval, denial, with or without conditions, it again goes through those same folks. So I do feel confident that there is a lot of good safeguards, but I do think it's also a good idea to make sure that that is expressly stated. And Christina's not here, but I know she said the same and would support that and make sure it's in there.
Well, rather than make the motion contingent on that, I think if it turns out that there's a gap, we've been revising the special events ordinance about once a month anyway, so we can just fix it in the future rather than making a complicated motion. Okay, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I would.
Oh, you're going to do it, Evan?
No, I was just going to point out that Section D is the referral agency review, and Section E, the special event advisory committee application review, has a lot of shalls in it. And so
Okay.
I think those shalls address your concerns.
I suspect you're right. Thank you.
I had a quick question for Mallory. With regards to the establishment of the pre-authorization list, can you speak to any grievances or feedback that we've gotten from event sponsors that sort of trigger the need for such a list, or is this merely a proactive move that the county would be making to ease the application burden on events that we highly value?
Yeah, I would say that it is a combination of them. We haven't gotten direct feedback, but I think looking ahead at the list of events that are coming down the pipeline, which are also somewhat backlogged because I think people have been waiting with COVID to see how it pans out. We are seeing these events that, it's like, wow, this is trunk or treat. This is a community event. This has happened for a number of years. This is something, 4 of the 5 of them are outdoors. It's very, for some of them, it feels like an added step when we know that their focus, what they bring to the community, their willingness to comply with things, is really what we want to promote here. So I think that that's part of it. And then, we have had a little feedback from folks, and I've also, to be honest, asked that people submit their input. I think it's important for us to consider. And from the few people that I have heard from, they definitely, I think, would support this. And there are quite a few that are coming up very quickly that I will say honestly, I think are kind of no-brainers, that adding the step of the commission would significantly delay, if not completely hinder the event. I don't know if that answers it.
Yeah, thank you.
Ready to make a motion?
I think that, can I just say a little bit follow up also? Part of the issue has to do with the fact, that the commission only meets once every 2 weeks. And if an application isn't completely straightened out and there's some issues, it could be punted out another 2 weeks. Under the process where they're pre-authorized, as soon as they get everything together and the the special events committee and the processing department, clerk auditor, et cetera, verify that everything is together, they can get their permit. We were looking down the line, for instance, at the high school race, mountain bike race, the rodeo, several other events, and we're actually cutting it pretty close. And so that's part of the rationale here. If an event sponsor has to wait too long and the approval gets too close to their event, there's a lot of a lot of unpredictability there. And there's a lot of money that needs to be invested in these events, a lot of staff, a lot of planning, et cetera. And so it's just tough on these sponsors if they, are only getting approved less than a month before their event starts. And so this is to help expedite that process. And I think that the intention that the commission had, for reviewing and approving certain events had to do not just with the size necessarily, but also the type of event, et cetera. And so I think that in a lot of cases, even though an event might be large, 1,000 people or more, it has a good track record. We know the people, and hopefully, you'd feel comfortable pre-authorizing those events so that they can be processed as quickly as possible.
If I could add quickly, there will still be a number of stipulations in place. For example, if it's not on the pre-authorization list and it's over 1,000, it still comes to all of you. If it is an OHV event, it will come to all of you. And there was a few what I think are just great kind of safety nets of a general, if it could affect the well-being, safety, various things for community members. So I would just, I would ask that with consideration of who is reviewing all of these and the safety nets again that are in place, that we would have some peace of mind knowing that we would catch anything controversial and it would only be the events that you're approving right now that are going to the Special Event Advisory Commission without hitting you all that are over 1,000.
So I move to repeal Chapter 8.16 Special Events of the Grand County General Ordinances and related ordinance number 637 and adopt new Chapter 8.16 Special Events as set forth in the attached ordinance and its Exhibit A.
I'll second that.
Mary, you're muted right now.
Apologize. Motion by Kevin, seconded by Sarah. Discussion, any further? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. We are now to item L, approving special event pre-authorization list. Mallory Nassau.
I saw someone raising her hand. I'm not sure if she.
Oh, I was raising my hand because never mind.
Okay, I will make it quick because I think this is rolled right into the last item. But there are 5 events in front of you. 4 of the 5 are outdoors. They are all reoccurring and in good standing with the community. And what I was thinking with this would be similar to the procurement list in the sense that monthly I could report when I do the special events item of what has gone through. Obviously there's not much, and we would do it, maybe quarterly if needed, maybe just annually, just to give you all an idea of what is coming and see what you're comfortable with. And in a perfect world, no more COVID. So there would also be much more time per the ordinance that events are submitting and that there is time for everyone to review.
Thank you, Mallory. Questions?
Thank you, Mallory, for putting so much time into this. It seems like very thoughtful and a way to really speed things along while also addressing our concerns.
Yes, ditto. So do I have a motion? Okay, Sarah?
Yeah. I'm always
You're frozen.
move pre-authorization list and authorize the clerk auditor to approve or deny the applications listed based on special event advisory committee's recommendation.
Motion by Sarah. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Jacques. Discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. We are to adopting 2 volunteer board members for the Thompson Special Service District Water Board. Trish.
Okay, Chris, I'll go ahead and dive into this, and if you want to throw anything in, please do. June of 2021, the commission approved resolution 3277, amending the appointment process of the terms of the Administrative Control Board, which encompassed 1 commission member and 4 citizens. We filled a couple of those seats, but it wasn't until recently that we had more applicants. So we had 3 applicants come in and we had 2 seats to fill. The 3 applicants were Corey Antis, Russell Bauer, and Jenna Talbot. We voted in a public meeting to recommend Russell Bauer and Corey Antis to the TSSD board. And Russell Bauer's term would expire 12/31/2023 and Corey 12/31/2024.
Yeah, I guess just one more thing to point out, and maybe you did, but Lori Bell wishes to resign from the board and assume the role of the staff secretary. And so that's why we have 2 positions open instead of 1.
Thank you. And then the other thing I'll add is we made it really clear, and Chris and I talked about this morning, it's a really small community. Inevitably, you're going to have people intertwined. It's just difficult. There's always going to be a slight conflict of interest, meaning, you know, somebody knows somebody, et cetera, and so on. But we made it really, really clear to board members or prospective board members that they will have to recuse themselves for voting on anything that they might have a conflict of interest in. And so that was kind of the big thing. Jenna is this awesome individual, but a little bit, she's not there full time. She works in Alaska. Russell has, he's been there for quite a while and has a lot of kind of tendrils throughout the community. So we just made that really clear to Russell that he will have to recuse himself from any voting in which he has a conflict of interest.
So do you want to make the motion, Trish?
Sure, I'll make a motion. I move to approve the following appointments to the Thompson Special Service District Board. Russell Bauer with the term expiring 12/31/2022, or Corey Antis with the term expiring 12/31/2024.
I'll second that motion. Mary, you're muted.
Motion by Trish, seconded by Gabriel. Discussion? All in favor of the motion? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. We are to consent agenda. Approving local consent for alcohol sales for the Canyonlands PRCA Rodeo. Approving bid award and notice of award for the purchase of the airport snow removal equipment. Approving First Amendment to the independent contractor agreement with State Fire DC Specialties, LLC for Old Spanish Trail Arena. Approving cooperative agreement between the Grants County Weed Department and the Utah Department of Natural Resources, Division of Wildlife Resources for Colorado River Restoration. Approving of amendment contract between Southeastern Utah Association of Local Governments, Area Agency of Aging, Interlocal Cooperations and Contract Agreement, a reimbursement through June 30th, 2020. Payment for various service related to aging and nutrition through June 30th, 2022. Do I have a motion to accept consent agenda?
Mary, I move to adopt the consent agenda as presented, and I do want to state that it's really important to have alcohol at rodeos.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Sarah. Discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Consent agenda passes. We are to discussion on Title 17, Use of Public Lands, Commissioner Clapper.
Yeah, this is the Title 17 was the one we saw a couple months ago with the public lands, and there was a lot of back and forth about the appropriateness of use off the pedestrian bridge in Lions Park. As you guys all know, that I'm a pretty avid climber, and slacklining kind of really came out of the climbing community, and so I've been fielding a lot of questions from folks about kind of where this came from, and a lot of the community felt kind of blindsided, and we're trying to understand the why behind some of this. And I think we kind of briefly skimmed over a lot of that in that meeting before we kind of like got off on some of these other bigger sort of what ifs. And I think with that idea of just kind of communicating to community members about, you know, changes to legislation, I thought that it did warrant a little more discussion. I didn't realize that the attorney was on vacation now. I lately reached out to the roads department, but it was kind of my understanding that a lot of this actually came from state agencies that manage the other side of the river. And really, I just wanted to kind of, just for discussion purposes, revisit this. And we actually, I invited some members of the slackline community that had questions for me to be here this evening, just so that it was a very kind of open discussion and in the effort of good faith to engage, for the county to engage in discussions with the body that we're essentially outlawing. The slackline community, to my knowledge, doesn't have anyone like the Access Fund that kind of fights for climber access to areas. Slacklining, much like skateboarding, can often happen in like a urban sort of setting. The community has invested in some slackline parks, but at the same time, they also have outlined rigging off of trees in parks and things like that. And you know, as a training thing for climbing or a sub-discipline, it is nice to kind of have an activity that you can kind of turn to for an hour or two, where it doesn't always involve, you know, a half day or full day mission going out into the backcountry and rigging deep far away. And so, just like we were speaking about before, just kind of embracing the adventure culture of our community and having access close to home. You know, I was also curious in exploring options for having something usable to the community in our parks. So I don't know. Andy Lewis is in the meeting, I believe. Are you there, Andy?
I'm here.
I don't know if there was any thing you wanted to add to that, or things to kind of spur some discussion. I know it is kind of late, so I could see this just kind of being the intro to something. We're not revisiting whether to repeal or anything tonight, but I did want to give you some space to engage with the body.
I just wanted to basically commend you guys for your efforts. Honestly, I sat through this whole meeting to just see what you guys go through. So thank you for doing that every 2 weeks. That's a lot of work and focus and effort and energy into a lot of different directions. And it seems kind of funny to be here actually talking about putting a rope between a rock and the pedestrian bridge comparatively to the subject of masks in schools and all sorts of BLM changes in budget and the sidings of arches and redefining boundaries. So I don't want to waste your time, but my basic question is can we start a discussion to some path of legalizing the use of the bridge for freestyle highlining for at least the local community? I'm not sure if there was an accident or an incident or even damage to the bridge, but I don't have any information proving that it doesn't do that, but I don't know if there was any information proving that it does. I don't think the bridge is gonna fall down from a slack line that pulls 1,000 pounds. And we've used it for like 10 years. But for the most part, I think it's just a discussion between you guys of whether or not you want to support the slackline community. So just as an intro, basically, I don't know if you guys want to support the slackline community, but if you do, I would like to start a discussion on how to reopen that bridge for a very unique style of slacklining, where unlike anywhere else, I wouldn't be here if we had another option. So the first option obviously didn't work with you guys because of whatever reasons you guys had. But what I'm asking for is maybe there's an option that can work for both of us. And that's about it.
Yes, Chris?
Yeah, I did forward to the commission the opinion are really the big issue is that whenever we allow an activity to occur on a structure that wasn't designed for it, we really have no ability to escape liability due to negligence. And you can't even have anybody sign a waiver. You know, an entity is still responsible to make sure that the activities that they're allowing are happening on structures that were purpose-built for it. And, you know, like probably one of my biggest issues is that, for one, knowing that we can't escape liability, even if folks sign waivers. And the second is that, you know, the money that we're gambling, and you have to realize that it even costs a lot of money to win a lawsuit, is the taxpayers' money. You know, and all these folks that are paying taxes work hard for their money. And so, you know, my suggestion to the slackline community is to do what the mountain biking community did, or the, you know, or the climbing community or whatnot, is to explore grant opportunities and to figure out a way to design and build infrastructure that's custom built. You know, I'm not sure what the possibilities are for that. I don't know if sovereign lands would go for it or not, because it's the moorings of the bridge and also the rock that's being used, you know, are on sovereign lands because they're below the high water mark. But the big issue for us is just that there's no way to escape liability due to negligence when you're allowing an activity to occur on a structure that's not purpose-built for it. I mean, we do actually have some misalignment issues on the bridge, on the side of the bridge that's been used for slacklining. I have no idea if slacklining caused that or not. But one thing to realize about bridges is they're not firmly attached on either end. They have to be able to move around for mostly due to thermal expansion and contraction. And the side of the bridge that the slacklining is happening on has had some misalignment issues. We've had to grind the concrete step down and change the entrance ramp to match how the bridge is now. And I'm not saying that I know that that's from slacklining, but there is evidence of the bridge behaving in a way that it wasn't designed for. It's out of alignment from what the engineer expected, which did cause us to have to do a little bit of work on the entrance ramp. But you know, the bigger issue, like I say, is just that you can't escape liability for negligence when you know that you're allowing an activity to occur on a structure that wasn't purpose-built for it. Now, there might be some capacity to get a grant or, you know, work through a process to design some anchors that are, you know, custom suited for the purpose. But my big issue is I don't want to gamble the taxpayers' money on something like this, and it would be a gamble.
So is there a way for people who have insurance to slackline on the bridge if you are to cover yourself with liability insurance of like $2 million?
I don't know. I mean, we'd have to talk with our insurance company. Generally speaking, that type of insurance, you know, any type of sports insurance usually doesn't even cover the participants. You know, and that's one of the things we've realized about, like for instance, the insurance that special event sponsors get. The insurance that they get doesn't cover participants or any of the people that are engaged in the activity. And it's actually very difficult to get that insurance and very expensive. But, you know, I haven't really inquired of our insurance company, and I assume it would have to do with the policy you know, that would be presented. But it's easy to get, you know, general liability insurance that doesn't actually cover the activity, you know, that you're trying to cover. And that's something that I find interesting, and I've found interesting over the years reviewing the insurance policies from special events. But that's just the way it is.
So
Yeah.
would there be a possibility of talking, because there are all sorts of different cases around the US of people being able to use structures and different societies that they had to go through and different like kind of red flag areas. And one of the things was talking with a civil engineer that can sign off on the sheer forces of slacklining using dynamometers and other force meters, and can basically identify whether or not that is a risk to things like you said with the alignment of the bridge. But could it be a possibility to add something to the existing structure that would signify that it was made for that purpose eventually, like an addition to the bridge or something like that?
Maybe, I don't know. We would have to go to the engineer that designed the bridge for that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that the liability thing was one that kind of came up after the draft of these changes, and I think it is a valid point. I think that the idea of you know, going after funding to create an intentional purpose-built sort of rigging system, whether that's off the pylon there or another place, might be the avenue to pursue. And I think that there might actually be some grant writers in the community that might be able to kind of help with that.
Because if we can rig to the pylon and that's not technically the bridge, that works as well.
Yeah, I think these are kind of questions more for an engineer, like you were saying, rather than, you know, some elected officials here. So,
are we talking about any other?
I thought your main. Go ahead, Gabriel, Sarah, and then I'll talk.
I was just wondering if we were talking about any other man-made structures aside from the bridge.
There are no other structures. The thing is it's for freestyle highlining. So it's not the kind of, it's like the difference between like electric guitar and acoustic guitar. They're the same instrument, but totally different things. So the reason why it's nice at the bridge is because it's over water and you have to have a little bit of height. So to do the tricks and to have the dynamics of the webbing, you need to be like 25, 30 feet high. And so if the line were to break, we have a backup. If worst case scenario, they both break, you have water. So it's kind of this thing where we did a price check because the city of Moab contacted us and said, hey, could you price check us for making a slackline park in the city where we can put up 30-foot tall posts and this and that? And I was like, okay. And it's like $75,000 minimum if we like get things like custom built and there's no backup for like ground fall. So just in terms of like proximity to town and the fact that it's on a walkway where you can just walk down and put it up, the fact that it's over water, and the fact that it's really strong and we could even use the pylon and not the bridge, those are the things that make just this the kind of only area that we have in town.
Okay. I guess this isn't really a question, it's more of a statement. I guess I'm confused as to why the commission is being approached or being sort of illustrated as outlining an activity that, you know, we're merely just sort of protecting taxpayer funds. You know, I have no problem with the activity when it's not a liability to taxpayer funds. It's not my interest, and I don't actually really appreciate being sort of, I don't know, characterized as outlawing an activity. I'm not really sure where that comes from.
It's just that the statement passed was the proposal to prohibit slacklining between man-made improvements, including critical infrastructure, and then criminalizing the use of that and abating offenders. So basically, overnight, I became a criminal for my recreational activity at the bridge, and that's okay because there's a fine of like whatever it was, $1,000 or 6 months in jail to slackline on the bridge. And so for us, that spot has been used for the last 12 years. And I don't know if there was like a lawsuit that scared you guys, or if there was an injury that cost taxpayer dollars from a slackline. I know there was a rope swinging injury at one point with somebody who hit the ground, but that's about the only thing that I actually know about the pedestrian bridge. Or people jump off of it all the time. I know that as well. But just the fact that the law criminalizes us, I didn't mean to make you sound like you guys were the reason for that. I know you guys make hard decisions. I'm just trying to figure out how we could work together to both support the slackline community and have you guys not be liable.
It was my impression from our last meeting, and Christina could answer this better, our county attorney, but it's my impression that the activity, I mean, I voted against this, the amendment to Title 17, just for the record, but it was also my impression that that activity is already illegal according to like state law. And so it was all about like authorizing our sheriffs to take action on it. So I'm not really sure like how much liability comes into it. I mean, it's not like we would necessarily have to authorize the use of the bridge as a county in order to not have it, we wouldn't have to like authorize use of slacklining on the bridge to not include the explicit banning of slacklining in the county code and encourage our county sheriff to go after people. So I guess what I'm saying is that I'm not sure we could do anything to make it legal if it's actually against state law, but we don't need necessarily as a county to include language that encourages our sheriffs to give people tickets for doing it. That's my opinion.
Or could there be like 3 golden tickets for just the locals in town?
I mean, I think my background for bringing it back up, and this is to kind of Gabe's question, is, you know, there was a time in the late 80s when rock climbing was basically becoming illegal by the safety measures that they had in place and the rigging operations, you know, and it really came down to defining what is a bolt and what is an anchor, you know, and there was real close calls that basically made climbing illegal in a lot of areas, and the only reason it was saved was through this definition of what an anchor is for essential safety. And it's you know, by kind of looking back on some of that history within the climbing community, and even though this slacklining and freestyle highlining has kind of spurred off to become its own thing. It is funny for me to be in a place where I'm drafting legislation that specifically calls out an activity. And I think that with the footnote of the infrastructure that is taking place on, that's really the thing to address here. And I think that, this is kind of the first step in some advocacy and just kind of bringing awareness to it. And it sounds like engineering and grant tracks are really kind of the next move. But to not have this discussion before just kind of felt odd to me, and that's why I was bringing it up.
Kevin?
Yeah, so a couple of comments. I think Evan started by asking, could we, talk more about this because it didn't get a deep discussion last time around. And I think the answer there for me, it will be, definitely yes. We should, I think we should always be willing to reconsider decisions we've made in the face of more information. I'm not, based on what Chris said, I'm not super optimistic about it. It sounds like the liability issues are going to be difficult to get around. And maybe this idea of just constructing new anchor points, for a similar activity in the same general area might be more promising. So that's the positive comment. But the more negative one is, I think, as more and more people come to the Moab area, the need for rules increases, and you can't make rules really fine-tuned with this fractal complexity. Sometimes rules, in prohibiting things that we definitely want to prohibit, we also end up prohibiting some things that weren't really doing much harm. But that's just kind of the nature. The rafting the Colorado River is a lot more restricted than it used to be, and the list goes on. And so I do, I think if I was doing something interesting outdoors, I would not publicize it at all, and then no one notices, and I can keep doing it indefinitely. But I think this is, it's not. There's the activities themselves, but there's also just the the numbers of people and crowding public lands, which create this need to sort of set up more and more guidelines for keeping things in check.
Thank you, Kevin. Trish, you had your hand up.
I'll try not to say very much because I'm actually pretty upset that this is back on the table, and I'm actually pretty upset that, Evan, you didn't take the time to answer emails that as we were discussing this internally before it came back up. So I'm pretty upset about that, but I'm going to be pretty adamant about this. I do not want to affiliate climbing with slacklining. I see no affiliation. I've been a climber for 30 years and I've never slacklined, and I do not want to see that affiliation. So please stop. I've had a friend have to fly to the top of Castleton and rescue an individual, pluck them off of the north face of Castleton in the middle of the night off a slacklining anchor because somebody rappelled off of that anchor. And I have gone around and around with Andy about multiple issues regarding slacklining as affiliating being affiliated. I'm just super upset about this. I think it's a sport, and I think it's great, and I think they can do their own thing, but I do not believe, and I appreciate Gabe's comment and Kevin's comment and Sarah's comment. I do not believe that the county or the citizens of this county need to be responsible for that sport. And we have, Andy, in the end, search and rescue has to do a lot to take care of the individuals, whether they're base jumping or slacklining, et cetera, and so on. And again, I'm gonna make this a very clear statement. Climbing is not slacklining. I don't want to hear it again. I don't want to hear it.
I think all of that is fine, but I think the discussion we're having right here, Trish, is about the pedestrian bridge.
Excuse me.
It is a public structure. It's a public structure.
There cannot be discussion between two. You have, Trish, you were in line, but you cannot directly talk to a commissioner without going through me. You have to ask for the to have the table through raising your hand. Because it turns into, I've seen it too many times in public meetings where then there's back and forth that is unproductive.
Thank you, Mary, for that.
I apologize.
So anyway, what I wanted to say earlier was that, you know, one of your first questions was, do we want as a commission to support slacklining as an activity in this community? You know, I find slacklining very fascinating and interesting to watch, and I think if people want to be involved in the sport, I'm fine with it. I do think you're going to have to find ways to have your slack lines in placed on items or anchored to items that are not part of a public entity because of the liability that happens to a public entity. So I think going through grants, going through things of that nature, figuring out another way to do it will probably be your best bet, because when Chris sent us the information on what the insurance companies told us, that was it was eye-opening to me. And so I would support and be happy if you could organize a group that could start looking at recreational grants, recreational processes in which to create a place where there is slacklining over the river. You probably have to be a private property or something, but I think a lot of the questions you were asked are beyond the means and the knowledge of our commission to answer. It's more engineering, it's more insurance, it's more people with information and knowledge that we don't have.
I think that is very knowledgeable as well. I would just like to have you guys maybe schedule a discussion on relieving that law eventually. And then if you re-vote against it, that is also fine. The other thing that I'd like to do is maybe ask you guys to just make it so the tickets were reasonable. Like, you guys could cover yourself for liability and have the laws in place. But if somebody who was rigging a slackline was caught, quote unquote, in the act of criminally slacklining, maybe they would pay a $50 fine, and then that could put
that would do nothing to support the law. And if you put a law in place, you have to support it. So I think we're going around in circles at this point. I don't think there's anything we can do without other information like our attorney, an engineer, person of that nature in place to answer questions that we don't have the ability to answer. So I would like to draw this, and if anyone, unless we have somebody that disagrees with me, I think it's time to bring this discussion to a close. Anyone disagree on the commission? Okay, we will draw this discussion to a close and move to the next agenda item, which is calendar items and special events. Mallory Nassau.
Yes, this one will be short and sweet. As we've discussed, there are some pending events. The Utah High School Cycling League, which would be September 24th through the 25th. We have the Century Tours bike race, which is going through the process right now, but they would be September 18th through the 19th. A big one for us every year is the Moab Music Festival. I will note they will not have their max attendee amount is 575 a day, but that is at 2 different locations and outdoors. And that's August 29th through September 16th. And then, as permitted tonight, we will have the Red Sand Powwow September 11th and 12th. And if there aren't any questions, I think that's all that I have.
Thank you very much. Now, Mallory, does anyone have any questions for Mallory? Thank you. Once again, I want to thank this commission for being so thoughtful, for coming prepared to the meetings, and being willing to discuss intense and difficult ideas. And, what we did with the mask mandate today was, I would ask you to contact our representatives and encourage them to support us on this, on the mask mandate. We do not have a public hearing. We don't need a closed session, from what I understand, correct? We have reached the end of our agenda. If no one objects, I will adjourn this meeting. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. We're out before it's dark.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.